uniform? Why can't nature be uniform without God existing? Now, whatever the preconditions or metaphysical context you're talking about, it sounds like what you mean by metaphysical context is just a stand-in for God. And so I'm asking, well, why can't there just be some different metaphysical context that's true? You know what I mean? Like, I want to know the answer to that question because I don't know why.
So I can, again, I don't know what, okay, so let's say we have, I'm assuming you're saying nature is uniform. Maybe we'll just say naturalism as your metaphysical context, if that's what you want to say. Okay. You might say like, okay, what is the like unifying concept or unifying like object that will unify everything? And by unify everything, I'm saying that there's like some sort of correlativity between everything that exists. Like, why is that the case?
Sorry.
And like, but
Do you
like,
want?
naturalism isn't. Go ahead.
Well, I want to. I don't know. I want to. I don't want to be rude, but at the same time, I want to stop you when I like don't understand what you're saying. Right. So is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this unification thing, and you said that it's like some correlation. What are the things that are correlated in this? Just give me an example of some things that are correlated, so I understand the idea behind it. Because right now, I don't. What is God unified? Like, say, for example, take two things that are separate that God unifies, and then explain why unification is even necessary.
Yeah, if I refer to my left hand and my right hand, those two things are unified because there's a correlation between those things.
But isn't there? I mean, if I took your
They're not purely like disjoint like objects.
so is it a mereological notion then? Because when you
No.
provide that example,
What do you mean?
yeah. So mereology is just the study of like part-whole relations. So there's like this whole
Oh, I know what
philosophy.
that is. I'm just saying like no, I'm just saying that they're correlated to each other.
Right, but like if it depends on how loosely you're using this, because I don't think you're using like the statistical frequency notion of correlation, right? So like if I cut off your arm and I took it to Zimbabwe, there's still a correlation between that arm and your other arm, and that would be, like when you move, your other arm doesn't move or something, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how loosely are you understanding this correlation? Because that's why I brought up the mereology thing, because it seems to me on a very loose interpretation of correlation, everything is correlated, and I'm assuming you don't want to use that loose interpretation, so I want to use like the interpretation of correlation that you are using.
Yeah, like maybe let me see if I can give a better example. Um, let's say, for example, I have like a piece of paper and I draw a bunch of like dots on this piece of paper. Now, dot one and dot two and dot three and dot four have some sort of like unification because they exist within the backdrop of the piece of paper. If I do the same thing on another piece of paper, now there might be an appearance of correlation between the dots on paper one and paper two, but in reality, they're just distinct and they're just disjoint. So like any similarity between them would just be like illusory.
Right. So the relation that you're talking about is they're on this piece of paper, right? Like that's in this example, that's the relation you're talking about, right? So it's some type of you're just talking about some relational notion, right?
Right.
So now the relation that I'm talking, see this loose notion of a relation, I don't understand how it would be different from the worldview I'm talking about, right? The hypothetical worldview where let's say nature is uniform and I have reliable sense perception, et cetera, whatever we take to be necessary for intelligibility that we both agree on. Now, the relation between those is that they're both true in the actual world, right? So I don't if the unifying is just the relations that are like are needed for them to be
Okay,
true. It's
but
just
like
that they're both true in the actual world.
yeah, but like okay, but hold on. What gives you like the right to refer to both of those things in like a coherent way?
So now we're talking about, now this is an epistemic right? Is that what you're asking about, like an epistemic right?
Well, well, presumably what you believe and what you know is going to track to reality, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the view.
So, like in reality, how is it that what you're referring to you can refer to in such a way that is coherent when you refer to multiple things?
The question is kind of like, I don't understand. Maybe if I understood the problem with that, then I would understand the question. But right now, I don't understand the question because I don't understand. You seem to be tracking that there's a problem. You seem to have this intuition that my suggestion implies that there's some incoherence, right? And I don't see what that would be. So I don't know how to interpret your question.
I think I made it pretty clear. Like if I if I can say hands, like if I say my hands, well, there's some sort of correlativity between my hands that I can refer to them coherently in a way that is reflective of reality. I'm asking you what gives you the right to do that.
Yeah. What do you mean by right? Is that like, what inferences are you
Like what
asking? What
enables you to do that, right? No, I'm asking you what is it that enables you to do so in a way that it's actually like when you refer to them that there is actually like a them, that you're actually referring to those two things or two or more things, and they're not just completely disjoint and disjunct things.
So you're asking, so in the example I gave, I took paradigmatic examples for prerequisites for intelligibility, which is like reliability of sense perception, uniformity of nature,
Hold on.
etc.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So and you're asking, is it sort of like, when you ask your question, are you sort of asking like, in virtue of what are those true?
Kinda, yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's to misunderstand my point, because my point was that that's just the stopping point. There's nothing further in virtue of which those things are true. They're simply true. Just like there's nothing further in virtue of which God exists is a true proposition. It's simply true. So, like, the fact that God exists is all that's necessary to ground the truth of God's existence. The same way I'm saying the fact that I have reliable sense perception is all that's needed for it to be true that I have reliable sense perception. And the fact that nature is uniform is all that I need for it to be the case that nature is uniform. Now, if you're asking for some unification principle, maybe they're not unified, maybe they are, right? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that they need to be unified. Now, my question is, if it is true that they need to be unified, well, why couldn't it just be the case that what unifies them is that they're both true in the actual world? The facts on the ground, the fact that I have reliable sense perception, the fact that the nature is uniform, why can't that be? Those are the facts that unify them, right? That those are both true in the actual world. That they're let's just say they're composite parts
Sense
of the actual world.
perception.
For the
Sense
sake
perception.
for the sake of argument, let's just say that they're composite parts of the whole world or whatever. Right now, I don't even think that there needs to be this unification on a view that I'm positing. But even if I grant this assumption that I think you're making, that there needs to be this unification principle, I don't see what ground it gains you in the dialectic. So that's the reason I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, like when I go like further into it, like maybe there's, you know, something about it. Like the point again is just that it's not like I'm trying to pick apart someone's specific worldview and then, well, let me say it this way. It's not the fact that I'm trying to, in virtue of the fact that somebody else's worldview is false, that the Christian worldview is true. Like that's not what I'm saying.
Well, no, I wasn't thinking that's why that's what you were saying. I was more asking, like, in terms of like your psychology, like if you've thought of this problem, or if you haven't, maybe the genesis of the problem is with me. Maybe you've never thought about it this way before. But I'm not asking for an argument. I'm sort of asking you, what moves you to think that God exists that we need these principles, that they need to be unified in this exact way, as opposed to them just being facts of the world, right? I'm saying, if you encounter that problem, do you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
an answer to that or not?
mhm. Yeah, I mean the way which you're articulating it now is new, like to me. So I'd have to think about like a specific problem with the way you're articulating it to me now. But again, like that's not really the aim, right? So like maybe I can't find like a problem with somebody's worldview, which is again like what I was saying earlier. But that's not really like the aim isn't really to find a problem with everyone's worldview and then say in virtue that the Christianity is true. Like I can say like, okay, fine, given your understanding and given the way you've articulated it, I have to think about finding someone else's problem. But that does like my belief in the truth of Christianity doesn't hinge upon whether or not I can or can't find a problem with what you're saying.
I wouldn't go so far as to say that your belief hinges on it. I obviously know that that's true. I mean, that's just some psychological fact about you, right? I assume that's true for everyone. Everyone has their own biases. But I'm just asking, like, when you think about it, if you think about that problem, is it like, is there no sort of pull for you? Like, you don't think at all, like, huh, maybe this could be true. Maybe this isn't a good apologetic. Maybe I need to have the answers for that, absent some, absent some deductive defeater for every possible worldview or whatever.
Well, again, I didn't say every or deductive defeater for every possible worldview is what it's my belief hinges on.
No, I know. I'm just saying, but does it? I know that, right? That's what my whole preamble was about. But I was just asking, does not having that give you any pause? Like, does it make you reconsider your position at all?
Saying does not okay, hold on. You saying does not having a deductive sorry, I might have misunderstood what you're asking. You said does not having a deductive argument against every worldview give me pause against holding to my worldview?
Because, like, yeah, the reason I asked that question is because it's like, well, if you don't think that you have that deductive defeater to every worldview, then it sounds like you're saying that you're, like, at least epistemically open to the possibility of your worldview being wrong. And if you're open to that, then it's like, oh, well, maybe I just have the wrong view here. Like, maybe does that's why I'm asking that question.
Okay, yeah. So like no, I wouldn't say that it gives me pause against my position, because I don't believe that my worldview is true in virtue of a deductive argument. So the lack of a deductive argument against somebody else's or I'll say I wouldn't say my belief that the worldview is true is in virtue of a deductive argument. And so the lack of one wouldn't really be cause for concern. Maybe if somebody were to give like a case maybe against the resurrection of Christ or something like that, or if they found Jesus' dead body, that would be something more that would give me cause for concern. Or if they presented some argument against how the Christian God could exist or something like that, then yes, that would be more of a reason. But the
That's
mere lack of a deductive argument against somebody else's position doesn't
well,
concern
that's
me in and of
interesting.
itself.
That's interesting that you think that way. I'd like to probe further about that, but I actually have to go. But it was nice talking to you.
You know, you can
Yeah, no problem.
prove
I'll talk to
Christianity
you too.
wrong to me, and I'll still believe in it. I'll still believe in Christ. I'll still say that there is a
Yeah,
shadow of the devil.
yeah. Well, everyone knows that you're a fucking idiot, so no one cares, bro.
I'm JRobin. I'm kind of curious. What philosophical problems do you think that God solves?
I'm not a philosophical like I would just say that God grounds certain things. Like I would say God is like the reason why certain things are the case. Um, like God gives us an ethical, moral framework. God is the source of all things, the creator of all things. Um, so like those are like certain things. Like I would just say God accounts for. I'm not really trying to give an argument against other people. I mean, I might, if somebody says, for example, in my worldview, 2 + 2 = 5, then I'll say, okay, well, like, tell me more about that. And I might probe into that. But it's not really with the goal of trying to disprove everybody else's worldview. I have my worldview and I believe it's true. And if somebody wants to attack it or critique it, that's fine. But again, I've made myself clear multiple times. My goal is not in and of itself just to tear down other people's worldviews and say that in spite of, or and say that in virtue of that, then the Christian worldview is true. That's not my my goal.
Ramesses,
And I haven't really done that. What do you go ahead?
did you say you were a Calvinism? Sorry, a Calvinist?
I say, yeah, like I'm more sympathetic towards it. I like in the past I really have not been, but now that I've done more like research about it, and I'm more sympathetic towards it. Like for example, I didn't like when I first started discussing. I
give us
wasn't.
a pretty
Go
tough
ahead.
argument. I
Wait,
was gonna say
just
that.
What do you say?
Hey, Matt, let him finish. Matt, he was telling us about his religious,
Oh,
with evolution. Go ahead.
Yeah, like for example, I wasn't a necessitarian when I was libertarian free will, but then after hearing cases for necessitarianism, I hold to that more. Like, or I hold to that now. I wasn't a believer in like divine. Well, I could say maybe like I understood a little bit about divine simplicity, and maybe like I kind of tacitly agreed to it. But like now I'm like, okay, yeah, divine simplicity, and it's not really in the. I don't know if I'd say it's exactly in the way that that it was like originally proposed, but like I have kind of my own version of it. And it just
And
comes
what
with
do you,
like thinking about the topics more and stuff.
so are you thinking that there's some sort of predetermined path in which some people are elect and others are not, and there's nothing really you can do one way or the other about that?
Yeah, we're not the ultimate determiners of what will happen.
Has that shift kind of changed the way you think about atheists? Because I know some from the kind of the previous view that you espoused would suggest that all atheists are liars. So has this kind of shift in your view of libertarian free will kind of shifted you away from that idea?
About how all atheists. Well, I'm never gonna say like all atheists are liars. I would just say that people have enough to come like to God and to submit to Him, and that like God has revealed Himself to everyone. I'm not gonna say. I don't think that like everyone's knowledge of God is the same kind of high level knowledge as like that. There are 2 + 2 = 4, and that you have 2 hands in front of you. But I think that God has given people like enough to choose to follow Him.
Why do you think that?
So, hey Jay, I would be curious to know. You said it's not the precept argument or anything that.
Why do you think that?
What is it that ultimately convinces you that the biblical worldview, that the God worldview, is in fact true? Is there any ultimate thing that convinces you about that?
God creates a moral framework that He doesn't believe in.
Yeah,
That's what.
No.
Are you okay owning slaves? Are you okay being one?
God has made me to know that He exists.
Thought so.
So my knowledge wasn't in virtue of some sort of deductive argument or
So you don't have knowledge?
empirical endeavor.
So you had a personal experience. You've had a
So it's
personal
not knowledge.
And
it's not
right?
knowledge.
You could say that. I don't know who's talking.
Two people cannot both be peppering him with
one
questions
mic
at the same time. You can't do that. If he's trying to answer someone's question, don't
I
ask
had
him
a
another
question
one.
and this guy started over talking, so I just figured I'd keep talking.
I did not over talk you. If I did, there's a lag, and I apologize. Yeah, I didn't mean to over talk anyone. If I did, there was a lag, and it was not intentional. And so
You didn't overtalk, but he asked a
Don't worry, bud.
question, and then you immediately asked another longer question right after, before JRobin could answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that. I
The
apologize.
other one. No, I think he's not
Can
the
you go
other
back
guy.
to sorry, there's like 4 conversations happening. Can you go back?
Yeah,
What was the question? What was the question you asked me?
Well, my ultimate question you answered. You said it was revealed to you, and I said that you had a personal experience,
yes.
and that's how you. And so you're convinced through a personal experience that the God of the Bible is true. Okay, that's fair enough. That was my question.
I think.
Thanks.
Well, I think everybody who's a Christian is convinced by personal experience, insofar as that personal experience is God's revelation. I think everyone. I mean,
well,
honestly,
I think everybody is convinced. Everybody.
Go ahead.
Everybody's convinced of everything through personal experience. There's no way I learned anything or
right.
you learn anybody other than through personal experience. I guess the fact that you attribute this personal experience to this God, I guess would be, I guess I could ask you reasons why you particularly attribute it to that God. But I mean, you're probably going to say something that it aligns with. I don't know. I mean, but that would probably be the next question I would ask: is why would you attribute that experience to the particular biblical God?
Because he's made me to know of his existence.
So
it's not like I think the way you're framing the question is that I'm presented with some information and then I do some processing of the information and then I determine that God exists. And that's not really what I'm saying about my knowledge of God. Saying that God has made me to know. Like I would say it's like innate knowledge of God's existence.
Didn't you say it was personal revelation? So you would have had to have known about it before revealing it, or did you know about it before you were born and existed before it was revealed to you? You're basically what I'm saying is what you just said doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but that's the answer to your question, honest.
Your answer didn't make any.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say something along the lines of, look, if someone who was born in Iraq or Iran had the same kind of experience you had, they probably would not have attributed it to the God of the Bible, right?
Yeah, people across the world had different beliefs and different gods. It's not really what I'm talking about, though.
You said you had the exact same reason to believe something different, so you can't both have the same reason to believe something different if it's always truth revealing, right? Right?
No, I don't think we have the exact same reasons. I don't think a Muslim and myself have the exact
But
same
you
reasons.
just said they would have the same experience with a different
Well, I said that.
overlook
I
of what that
said
was.
that. No, that was
Well,
me.
he
I was the
agreed
one
to
that
it,
said
yes. And he agreed that they would have a different opinion on that by the end, which is not possible under his worldview.
Oh,
Well,
again,
I mean,
like if he's referring if what he's referring to is just these proximate causes, like aside from God's like direct revelation of his existence or whatever, but like they might
No, that's what
attribute
I'm
the
talking about,
trees
which is what you just said that they would
and
have with a different outcome. So if
excuse
they
me,
have
please. Can I
that,
finish? Can I finish, please?
if you thought to misquoting me,
I'm talking about what Honest was referring to. I'm talking about giving context to my response to Honest's question. So what I took Honest to be meaning was that somebody in an Arabic country, a Muslim majority country, could look at the trees and look at all of creation and attribute that to a different God. Which I'm saying, yes, they can do that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you had you had some type of an experience where you feel like the God of the universe revealed himself to you in such a way that you could not be wrong about it. Is that fair?
Okay.
I'm asking you
that
if
was
that's
the
fair.
experience.
I want to steel man. I'm trying to steel man you. I don't want to strong man you. You had an experience that God revealed himself to you in a way that you could not be wrong about it, right?
Yeah, maybe the word experience is the wrong word because I believe I have like innate knowledge of God. And so when you said experience, maybe like my concession was a bad like word or make a bad concession because I don't think it's like the result of some sort of like rational or like cognitive experience or some external experience. That's not what I'm saying.
why did you
So
reference your experience when I asked you earlier?
So you have
I had misspoken.
So you have an innate knowledge of. But let me ask you this: do you think that you have an innate knowledge of the biblical Christian God? I mean, even if I were to concede, and I will concede that it seems that most people have supernatural beliefs, and most people have God beliefs of some type, right? So it seems that we're predispositioned to have supernatural beliefs and believe in ghosts and all kinds of things, right? And so even if you can see that, I guess, how did you get to the Christian God? And then how do you get to a Christian God as an unembodied mind that all facts and intelligibility rely on, right? You get a lot of lifting to do to get there, right?
I would say there are certain things, certain other, like we can know more about the Christian God in virtue of the Bible and his revelation of the Bible.
How do you know the Bible's true?
Yeah, but I guess I'm saying is a person of another faith could say the exact same words that you're saying and attribute it to a different God, and I'm no closer to being able to tell the difference between what you're saying and what they're saying. And if you can use a
Yeah, I mean,
methodology,
like now what you're doing is you're asking me to. Yeah, like now what you're doing is you're asking me to like convince you why one God is better than another God, or like why to sway you in one direction if these two people have the same experience.
No,
Well, that's
I'm asking.
that's what it sounds like you're asking me.
I'm asking you why you chose to attribute it to the biblical God. What is it that, and my assumption is that you grew up knowing about the Bible. You grew up maybe in a Christian home and you knew about the Bible, and so it just seemed natural for you to attribute it to that God. Right? And that's if you can use this methodology that you've used to arrive at your God, and another person can arrive at a different God, then is that methodology a good methodology to conclude anything that is true or not?
It makes his necessarily wrong, actually, because he believes he can't be wrong about that experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
but a person of another faith could say the same thing.
Exactly. That necessarily makes his view wrong.
Can you repeat what you said? I didn't quite catch what you said.
I said
Sure.
that
His view is that he can't be truth revealing if he revealed a not truth. So if anyone comes to a different conclusion, his view is necessarily wrong.
Yeah, no, I was asking about the methodology. So you feel like God is innately made himself known to you, and that it is in fact the Christian God. And I'm saying that there are other people who can say that a different God has made themselves innately known to them. And so if just feeling this innate feeling, which I don't think it's innate, I think it's actually learned, because I think you probably grew up around Christianity in a Christian home here in the U.S., maybe a Christian home, but at least being saturated with Christianity, that it would just be normal if you had some God concept that you can attribute it to the Christian God. That's all I'm saying. And if you can use this innate feeling or sense or revelation or whatever you want to call it you have to arrive at a God conclusion, then another person can use the same innate sense and arrive at a different God conclusion, then what does it do about your innate senses as a way to determine if something's true or not? It tells me that that's probably not a reliable way to
Well,
determine.
by definition, if it is innate knowledge, then it is true. That's what I'm taking innate knowledge to be. So there's no case in which somebody's truly has innate knowledge of one thing, and then someone truly has innate knowledge of a mutually exclusive thing at the same time.
Well,
Now the other,
well, they would make the claim, but they would make the claim that they do, and so you're going to make a claim of innate knowledge of the Christian God, right? And a Muslim will make an innate claim of Muslim. Yeah, if you're making an innate claim of the Christian God and a Muslim's making an innate claim of the Muslim God, then where does that leave us?
Well, yeah, again, like when you say where does that leave us, I think again you might not be doing this intentionally, but what it sounds like you're doing is you're trying to talk about like convincing. There's actually a better critique you could run against that. Okay, like I just thought of now, but it's not what you're talking about. Like the question you're asking right now is not what the better critique is. So it's something I'd have to think about more. But like no, like what you're talking about, no, it's not really. I could tell you the better critique if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm more interested in
maybe
I was really just truly interested in what convinces you about about Christianity, right? Because everybody's different, and I hear different answers, and I mean it's fair enough if you feel God's innately revealed himself to you. I mean, how can you argue against that? I mean, if somebody thinks that's the case, how would I even begin to convince you that that's not the case? That's ridiculous. I wouldn't even attempt such a futile, task.
Yeah, like that's why, for example, as a Christian, I believe in innate knowledge, and I'm sure that there are Muslims, there might be atheists that hold to innate knowledge. So I'm not really going to critique their worldview on the virtue or on virtue of innate knowledge, because I don't have a principled objection to that. I might use other tactics and like whatever to like pick apart like different parts of their worldview or whatever. But I don't have a problem with somebody claiming innate knowledge. And like, yeah, that's what I would say. In fact, I would say maybe there might be cases where you have to assume that there are certain things that are just maybe like tacit knowledge, or you might want to call it like a priori knowledge or whatever. I'm just using those words synonymously. Like, I don't know if there's a big difference between them, but presumably even like you would have to assume that there are certain things you just know. So like in principle, there's no objection to it.
No, I agree.
Or
I
like
don't
there's
have
no
any
objection
objection
to
to it. Yeah, I don't have any objection.
yeah.
I mean, there's been some studies that I found amazing where they showed babies, like little babies, like 3 to 6 months old babies, pictures of animated cartoons of stick figures trying to climb up a hill, and every once in a while another stick figure will come up from behind it and try to help it get to the top of the hill, and then there's other stick figures that would be at the top of the hill bashing the stick figure down, and then sometimes in the animation they would have the stick figure that's actually trying to ascend the hill cozy up and hug and love on the person or the stick figure that was bashing them, and they respond startled, and they look at it for a long time. It's like something unnatural is happening to them and they don't understand it. So I would agree that there's some innate stuff going on in the human brain about the world around us and what we perceive. So I'm absolutely in agreement with you. But I guess it depends on what you're going to attribute that innate knowledge to, right? And that's more the line of my question is why you chose to attribute it to the Christian God, advice, just the human mind or a different God or something, right?
Right.
Okay. You guys have been talking for a while. Is there anyone who wants to ask JRobin a question? Says that he's willing to defend his Christianity against anyone. Anyone?
I could stay on for a few more minutes if anyone wants to.
Oh, just for a few more minutes now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a few more
I
minutes.
don't need to answer any questions though.
I could ask him some hard hitting questions.
No.
You? Go ahead. What's your hardest hitting?
Yeah, my hardest hitting question.
I want an atheist though.
Well, trust me,
There's
you
some
won't be
mean
able to-
crap. I'm just gonna mute you, Matt.
Well,
Can you guys
You gotta
hear me?
rethink it now.
you
You
might
don't know
maybe
if you wanna
someone
ask
else
it?
could ask the question then. Actually, it was going to be a softball question
No,
that we would
I was.
agree with.
All right, you're muted. Thank you, Matt.
Well,
Is this Billy Martin?
Yeah. What's up?
What's up?
Yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say that I think that one route you could take is rather than say that sort of God is necessary for these sorts of things like sense perception and laws of logic and stuff like that. Another route you can take is to say that God sort of best explains these sorts of things, rather than to say that God is necessary for these things. Because as soon as you say that God is necessary, as Josh was pointing out, that you're just going to have to show some sort of problem with these things existing, like laws of logic and reliability of sense perceptions and stuff without God. But once you say that once you start going down the line of God best explains, it just seems like you're doing natural theology. But
what's the question, Billy? Billy, did you have a question? What's the question?
I understand what you're saying. Like, so
yeah,
I'll respond to that. Like, so I could say, so maybe it's a fault on my part when I say that God is necessary, because it's not necessarily that I'm saying like a logical necessity where I'm trying to find a contradiction of other people's worldviews, but it's more that I'm saying God is metaphysically necessary, meaning that he is like the ground of all being, and that everything exists because of God. So there's not going to really be any room for, like, you can't say that something else is possible, because by possibility I'm just taking possibility to say that a certain state of affairs is consistent with a certain set of factors, and no other worldview would be consistent with the Christian worldview because God exists already in that worldview. So that's what I mean when I say that God is necessary.
yeah, I see. Yeah.
But like,
And
maybe I won't use that language as much and without
no,
explaining.
no, I think
But that's what I'm saying.
no, I think you can. Like William Lane Craig takes God to be necessary, presumably, because God, is metaphysically necessary, exists in all possible worlds. But I think that, when Darth points out, oh, William Lane Craig was asked whether he knows that God exists, and he said no. Oh my gosh. I take it that Craig is talking about sort of epistemic necessity, that for all he knows, God might be false. But if God does exist, then God is necessary. Like mathematical truths are necessary. But somebody might not know about mathematical truths, even though if they're true, they're necessarily true. So I think you can say that God is necessary. But as soon as you say sort of like, oh, God is necessary for laws of logic to exist or something like that, then that's where you sort of get into problem.
Yeah, if you're using logical or if you're using necessary in that kind of like logical necessity, that's not how I'm referring to it. But like I could say God is necessary for sense perception and logic in the metaphysical sense, and I think that would be okay, because all I'm saying is that God created those things and that God is like the source of all things, really. But that any other world where logic and sense perception exist that does not include God is just not consistent with the world where the Christian God exists. So like in that sense, it's necessary.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much time. So
I got a question.
Like that's what I say is like metaphysically necessary, really. So like it's necessary, but like in a different like modality, if you want to say.
I got a question for you, JRobin.
Yeah, go ahead.
So how do we go from God exists to is the Christian God that exists when we have a lottery of theistic claims versus the broader theistic claim that people could find themselves in?
I'm not quite clear what you're asking.
How do we go from God exists to is the Christian God?
Like I can give how the Christian God accounts for certain things. That's what you're asking.
Sure, but couldn't a deistic God just
again,
as well do the same?
Yeah, no, like I don't believe it could be the case in the sense that we were just saying earlier. But
what would be
like,
your
you could hold that belief?
What would be your best assumption to go about saying that it's not just a deistic God, but it's in fact a Christian God?
It's not going to be like satisfying to you, but I'm just going to say it's because the Christian God exists. So the Christian God is going to rule out any other possible, or not even any other proposed worldview.
Wouldn't that be then just circular reasoning, which could be considered fallacious or fallible?
Well, it'll be like worldview circularity, but I think that almost anyone's going to fall to that as well.
Bye.
I disagree in that, like, if we're not making
somebody has an open mic.
not making a conclusion or an absolute, then it wouldn't fall prey to circularity. But I'll hold it there.
Joanna has an open mic. Sorry, can you repeat that? Because I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Yeah, if we're not making any absolutes or coming to a conclusion, then I don't see how it could be circular in all views without a conclusion or an absolute.
Yeah, maybe if you hold like there is no metaphysical ultimate, maybe like then you can say something like that. But then like I would have my own problems with that kind of a view.
I feel like it becomes circular the moment we try to instill an absolute into the equation. But I'll leave it at that, and yeah, somebody else can take over. Thank you.
I got a question on that.
I feel like I'm
actually.
like a talk show host. Why? Like, yes. You don't have to say thank you.
Next question. Go ahead.
Coming to that conclusion off faith.
Biblical faith just refers to confidence. I don't think my confidence in it is what determines the truth or like my belief in it. I would say have belief, and then I do like have confidence in it. But yeah, like I would say like there are beliefs that I have that are based off of a confidence that I have in God and His promises.
Okay, I guess that's it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. If you start to take the Calvinist position, what's going to be your response to the claim that God has moral culpability for the evil that occurs in the world?
Yeah, I think that the claim that so I think many Calvinists would then like kind of reject the notion that moral culpability is going to entail that there is the ability for a libertarian free choice.
The idea is that if there is no libertarian free will, and if God determines some people to be not able to receive God's grace, who are just degenerate or reprobates from before they were born, and then they get punished for the things they do, how is that moral? Why is God not the author of that and all the things they do?
I mean, that's a question. So like why isn't God being immoral, or like why is that not immoral? Like I don't know. I mean, if I said I don't know to that question, what hinges on that?
Well, nothing really hinges on it. You just might want to have a better answer if you're going to defend Calvinism, because
I could appeal maybe to like our rationality, but I mean, ultimately, that's going to be also subject to God's sovereignty. So, yeah, I mean, I would say God judges us according to the like how we follow the gospel, like the gospel message. Like if you put your faith in Jesus Christ. Now, whether or not you're culpable is not going to be in virtue of whether or not you have a libertarian free choice. In my view.
Yeah, but what's the reason for that?
No, it's just not the case for me. It's just like I don't think like my view on whether or not somebody has moral culpability is not going to factor, or it's not going to hinge upon whether or not they have a libertarian free choice to do otherwise. So that's just not my view.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if that view is going to bump up against some of your other intuitions. For example, do you think we should execute the criminally insane? because they did do the murder, even though they're not morally culpable because they're insane.
I think it's different with respect to human interactions and comparing how God treats human beings. I think there's a difference. Because, for example, I think I made this claim earlier, that when judging moral actions, it's important to understand not only the action that took place, but who does the action. So, for example, I made the claim earlier that like I can't just put handcuffs on somebody and find them, even if they committed a crime. Like I cannot act out my own justice in this world. But a police officer could, and he does have the authority to do such a thing if the person commits a crime, because they have the authority to do so. So, like in one sense, or in one the handcuffs that can find them is moral because some specific person did it, specific class of people.
Yeah, you're breaking up,
In
man.
the case of another
You're breaking up.
person. So I say, hello?
You're breaking up.
Didn't hear any of
You guys
that.
hear me?
Something about you maybe saying that you don't have the authority, but God does. Something like that.
Right. So I would say God has the authority to enact certain states of affairs, and the fact that those states of affairs obtain does not mean that God is immoral in bringing about that state of affairs. I think another thing to consider is the fact that God is not obligated to treat creation any sort of way. If you're going to like argue that he does, then you'd have to also say like, with regards to what does that have to be the case?
Yeah, it's with regards to his alleged omnibenevolence.
Yeah, but like, so the Christian perspective on omnibenevolence is not that God is going to be affectionate towards everybody or kind to everybody, because, for example, God is not going to be kind to Satan, and like
fair?
Christians would hold to
Obligated to be fair. Fairness, is there any entailment from omnibenevolence that you treat people fairly?
What do you mean by fairly?
I mean, not be unfair. Like it would seem that punishing somebody for something that you determined they would do is unfair. I think you would agree in any other situation that would be unfair.
Well, again, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done. That's fine.
Yeah. So again, that would have to presuppose that there is a certain obligation that God has to like treat somebody in a certain way. When like the mercy that we see is exactly that. It's mercy and it's grace, which is unmerited. So like most Christians are just going to say that, yeah, like I'm alive here today because God has been merciful, and because like everyone's like we're not sinless. We live in a fallen world, and so God's been gracious and merciful towards everybody. So it's not really that people are owed this, but it's more that God is merciful towards us.
But he isn't merciful to everybody.
I mean, that's a common Christian. That's like what most Christians are going to say. What do you say?
But under Calvinism, he's not merciful to everybody. He doesn't save everybody, no matter what they do. They are just predestined.
No,
to
according to general, like it's not a Calvinist specific thing. Like, for example, God does not. No Christian thinks that God's going to be merciful towards Satan forever.
does.
God's merciful towards Satan now. Most Christians aren't going to agree to that. They're going to think that God, because mercy is undeserved. So like you don't have to be merciful towards people. That doesn't diminish your lovingness. It just means that you're not merciful because it's not deserved. You don't deserve mercy.
Yeah, most Christians would say that mercy is available to all who want it. But that's not what Calvinists say.
Well, Calvinists would say that. It's just that they would say that it's under specific circumstances, or like under a certain context, people are going to want it, and that's the context that God regenerates
They
them.
want it. They're going to want it if God decided they're going to want it.
Right. So it wouldn't be like those aren't inconsistent. It's just that you have to take one circumstance in a certain light and in a different light if you have a different position.
Well, I mean, we can leave it there, but I think that that's the kind of probably going to come across as a Calvinist. I think if omnibenevolence doesn't, if by omnibenevolence you mean he's omnibenevolent to some, but not all, I think that's an odd definition of omnibenevolence.
But like again, but you're not really attacking the pervasive Christian opinion, because no Christians,
I'm attacking Calvinism.
very few Christians are going to say. Yeah, but I'm just saying, even broad. This is not specific to Calvinism. That's the point I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, like, this is not an attack on Calvinism. This is just a general attack you'd have to make against any Christian, because very few Christians are going to say that God, by God being omnibenevolent, that means that He's going to 24/7 show mercy to everybody and act affectionate and kind towards them.
I didn't say anything about
was the case,
kind. I said that He would offer grace to those
merciful.
who seek. He would offer mercy
right,
from hell. Mercy meaning salvation. He would save them from damnation, and because they seek it, they repent, they ask for forgiveness, they acknowledge Jesus as the Lord and Savior. Most Christians would say that's all you need to do. So I am attacking Calvinism, because Calvinism would say no. Some people are damned, and it doesn't matter what they do because they're predetermined to be damned. And I don't think that's consistent with omnibenevolence.
Are you saying that God has to treat people in a certain way?
I'm saying it's not consistent with omnibenevolence as I understand it. If you understand omnibenevolence as predestining people to eternal damnation, that just doesn't, you can say that, but I don't think that's most people's understanding of what omnibenevolence is.
I don't think omnibenevolence, under my conception, entails that God is necessarily going to treat people a certain way. I think what omnibenevolence means, and actually, really, I don't say, okay, I'll say omnibenevolence, but it has to be like specifically laid out in a certain context. Because normally, what I would say is something like God maybe is all good or something like that. And if I use your terminology like omnibenevolence, if we're like at the start of a debate, then I have to like make sure that those terms are laid out. Mm-hmm. So, like by benevolent, like if we just take the word off at face value, I don't know if I'd say like God is benevolent towards everybody.
Right.
Right. Because I don't think any Christian's going to say that God's benevolent towards everybody. But normally, like we take omnibenevolence to mean that God is all good, or like has some sort of moral like standard that He's abiding by. That's normally what we mean. So like,
yeah. And the problem is that when we think about people who are morally good, we don't usually think of them as treating people unfairly, right? We think of them as treating people fairly, giving everyone the same opportunity for this or that, not picking favorites, and certainly not predetermining people's outcomes. That doesn't seem fair. And if you think that fairness is completely separate from moral goodness, I just think that's like a weird position to take.
Well, by fair, you're going to have to presuppose that certain people are entitled to certain things and that they don't receive what they're entitled to.
I think if you were morally,
what fairness is going to have to assume.
Yeah, I think if you were morally good, you would assume everyone's entitled to the same treatment.
No, like I don't think a Calvinist would accept that everyone is entitled to, like, in virtue of what are they entitled to? Anything.
Well, just that's what fairness means. That you treat, I mean, more or less, that you treat people the same, right? That you don't play favorites. You don't say, okay, I'm going to give you cake and I'm going to give you carrots, and that would be unfair. There's just like a basic understanding of fairness. It's equality.
No, I don't think a Calvinist would say that God treats every single person the same. I think a Calvinist would say that. And
that's the problem.
I'm like, so again, no, it's not only a problem if you assume that people are entitled to certain, like if you have like an argument that people are entitled to certain treatment, then okay, that would be a problem. But
It's not that they're
otherwise,
entitled.
there's
It's not that
no.
they're entitled. It's just that in virtue of your omnibenevolence, you would be fair. That's the objection.
You're just using circular words. Like omnibenevolence is just referring to fairness, and fairness is just referring to equal treatment. You're just like in virtue of omnibenevolence, you'd be omnibenevolent. That's all you're saying here. It's like trivially true. Like we have to talk about the substance of the words. So the
Well,
only
that's
reason you could
yeah.
say the only reason you'd have an expectation of being treated a certain way is because perhaps you're entitled to that treatment, right? Like if you don't have any rational expectation of being treated a certain way, then you can't say that not being treated that way is unfair. So what I'm asking you is like what gives you the expectation that people are going to be treated a certain way?
Just my understanding of what the word means. That's what I think it means. I mean, for example,
Okay.
if God sent every single human being to eternal hell, is he omnibenevolent? And I think most people would say no, right? But the Calvinists might have to say yes, because my version of omnibenevolence is just, whatever he does is good, I suppose. Is that, I mean, you could say that, but I think your definition would be veering on the idiosyncratic.
Yeah, I mean, like again, I'm still figuring out. That's why I say I lean Calvinist. I never say I'm a full-on Calvinist. Every time I've referred to Calvinism in my position, I've always said I lean Calvinist because there are several things within the Calvinist position that I hold to be true. But exactly how like everything is going to play out, I'm more agnostic towards that in terms of like how certain things are going to happen. So like I would say I trust God's judgment on everything, of course, but the specific ins and outs of
Picking up
like
for everybody else.
what's exactly gonna, what are you saying?
Nope, he's not.
Oh,
It's my problem.
Noise.
Ignore me.
Hello? Okay, sorry.
There's just some background noise. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I will say again, I lean Calvinist. There are several Calvinist beliefs that I hold to, but again, there's a lot more thinking about what certain entailments are going to be if I hold to every single tenet that most Calvinists hold to, which is why
You sound pretty close
I'm
to
not
me.
going to believe. Well, I'm close.
He's close, but not all the way.
I'm fairly. Yeah, there's a lot of beliefs I hold to, but like I have to still work out some things, but like in terms of how exactly God's going to deal with everybody and like how that's going to work. Because
Yeah, I got a question for
like
you
of
based
course God's
on
going to be
Hades'
just everything.
kind of
I mean,
critique.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll leave it there.
Yeah,
I'll
and
leave
then
it there. Appreciate the conversation.
I have like 5 more minutes because I have somebody. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Hades' critique was like one that's trying to like draw on your intuitions, but like you seem like you're going like, well, yeah, but it's like kind of an external critique to say like, this is how I would view omnibenevolence to be fair, right? But then it seems that you could just run a similar argument, at least in this same kind of vein, but an internal critique. So here's the way I want to think about it. Like, well, first, let me just see if we agree. Based on scripture, it seems that God doesn't prefer sin, death, evil, suffering, all these things, right? You agree with that?
I would agree that he doesn't in a certain sense, yeah.
Okay.
With regards to maybe like his prescriptive will, or like you can draw a comparison to you might say like certain actions in the world are not consistent with the love that he has within his essence.
Sure.
Like
Well,
amongst the Trinity or whatever.
yeah. Well, then let me ask you this. So you said you're necessitarian. Is that just in regards to the possible outcomes of creatures, or do you think that God is restricted to only be able to create this one world?
Yeah, I think that God only can create the one world that exists.
And what's the reasoning for that?
Because I think that whatever God does is going to be like reflective of his nature. And because God's nature is one specific way, then there's only one world that's going to reflect that. If you have like a set of worlds, whatever world he chooses to, like, because ultimately, like, all of us are going to agree that God's ultimately responsible for everything. And so whatever world of the set of worlds that actually is going to be enacted, if God is responsible for that, that one world that was picked is going to be in virtue of something that is not arbitrary. It's going to be in virtue of something that his nature reflects.
So
I think
God
there's only
couldn't.
one possible world.
So God couldn't have created the possible world where instead of having 432 hairs in your head, you had 433.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just not
Because
seeing
of
how
God's
his
nature,
nature.
Converse.
Yeah, I'm not
Because
seeing
of
how
God's
his
nature.
nature is gonna constrain like something that's trivial. But
You
like
don't see
so.
how, like, okay, like, I don't know what you want me to, how do you want me to respond to that? I mean,
Oh, I thought maybe you
okay.
had like a reason besides like.
Yeah, I would say like
God's
God has
nature is
reasons like for everything he. Yeah, like God has reasons for everything he does. Do you both agree on that?
Yeah, we could say that. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
But
So
you don't think
there's a
that God
reason
could
why the
have.
world. There's a reason.
You don't think
There's
God
a
could
reason
have
why the world that
underdetermined.
exists is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say you think you presumably believe that there's a reason why we exist in this world and not another, right?
Yeah, but are you ruling out that there could be something that God could do that his reasons for which is underdetermined? So like he has just as much reason for one than the other.
If you want to go that route, then the problem is that then any world that does actualize would be arbitrary.
By arbitrary here, do
They
you
have the
just mean
same.
like free choice?
No, there's no more reason why one world got picked than another.
Oh, are you
So it
just
would be
asking about?
arbitrary.
Are you just asking about contrastive reasons for a choice?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you accept that view, it's not part of the view that there is some reason that determines the outcome, but you just take it that he chooses the reasons for one rather than the other. But yeah, on that view, there just is no determination based on some other reason, right? But that doesn't
Right.
seem to.
So then that's
I don't.
like that's, but like, okay, there's two things. First of all, then that's the arbitrariness objection I just raised. But then the second thing is just that, like when you say that God has reasons for everything he does, well, there's no more reason for him to pick one world over the other, right? So while there might be a certain set of reasons, what I'm saying is that ultimately there's a reason why this one world got picked, and you're saying that there's no more reason in this world than another equally possible world, which is the problem. Like like maybe you do hold to like arbitrariness, but I'm just saying like that's not like I hold to a position that like if there is something that happens in the world that's like the best of all, which I don't know how to say possible, but for lack of a better term, possible
It's the way that
outcomes.
you're talking about the world choices that there's like God like has this like there are these worlds out there and he's like standing back looking. He's like, all right, which one has like the most reasons or something? But on the Calvinist view, God just determines what all the values would be for all these for any.
Converse, can I
Yes. No,
hone in
I
a bit?
agree. I agree.
Like,
Wait,
I want to make this point because I do need to
no, on
go.
that same point, on your point.
Well, I just have one more thing to like. So it seems that if you agreed with me at first that God seemingly doesn't prefer and doesn't like sin, death, evil, and suffering in the world, right? And you agree that God determined not only the world that that He instantiated, but the choices of all the creatures in that world. And it seems to fall then that God created a world in which He determined people to have sin, death, and all these things in the world. But I just don't see why there's some logical bar why God couldn't have created a world in which he just determined agents to not do sin, right? And you can't say because of their freedom, right? Because he just determined all of their desires and so forth.
Right.
Yeah. So my position is that I think maybe what I was doing was giving an illustration. Like I was saying, if you went the route of saying that there's even a set of possible worlds, that there's going to be a reason why God picked one world. I'm not saying that there's a set of possible worlds. So like if that was if that's what you understood, No, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that if we imagined a set of, that's what I said. I said if we imagined a set of possible worlds, that's even in that case, we're going to have some sort of determinism there.
Right, but
That's
even in
kind of what
our
I'm saying.
actual world, even in our actual world, you don't have to say there's like possible worlds. You just go, why the actual world? Oh, because God had, there enough reasons to like, pick this world as the, the world to create or whatever. Well, those reasons, are they external from God, or does he just determine the world he wants? And if he doesn't prefer sin, death, and evil, he just doesn't determine if those things come about. It seems pretty straightforward, right?
That's why I said in a sense that he doesn't want sin, death, and evil, because like in God's ultimate plan, there's going to be sin, death, and evil. So if you want to refer to desires in that sense, then God has ordained that certain things are going to happen with respect to his ultimate plan. But if we're talking about wants in respect to how they compare to his eternal like essence, like in terms of his goodness and his lovingness, then no, he does not want those things to happen. So you have to make sure you understand want. Like that's how I'm breaking it up in my worldview. So that's how I'm going to respond to that.
You know what's funny? It's like you're talking about this world where God creates 432 hairs on your head instead of 433. And JRobin wants to say it's not possible that he could have made you with any number of different hairs on your head. What's weird is that I think JRobin would say that the number of hairs on one's head is an accidental property, right? But if he's also a necessitarian, there is no other like you with 432 hairs on your head. It's like necessarily the case that you have 433 hairs on your head. So what does it mean to say that use this type of like modal language and say like if he would have created you with this amount of hairs on your head, which he couldn't have done, right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're saying like it's an essential property, not an accidental.
Yeah, it is an
property.
essential. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right, Converse.
Right. And so there aren't accidental properties.
That's right.
Just
Yeah.
properties.
That's right. You got it. You having 433 hairs on your head is an essential property.
Yeah, I'd be interested in his response because it does seem intuitive that like the exact same as me, but with one more hair on my beard or something, wouldn't change my essence, right? Or if I were, let's say,
that couldn't be you because there is only one you.
Right.
Wasn't that his argument with Jesus? That he only lost his accidental properties? How would he have accidental properties under this?
That's right, Jane. You got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as I send them over, I can get them done.
Yeah, I gotta mute this guy again. Please do not unmute these hot micers. Please do not unmute them. Thank you. Just leave them.
I gotta get back to work, but I would
throw them in the
I would be
gulag.
interested in his response.
Yeah, we're all, yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's anyone any explanation forthcoming, Converse.
I think you're right, Tom. I mean, like for example, I'm 6'2". Well, could God have created me to be 6'1"? Well, then that wouldn't have been me.
Right. That's right.
You're right.
You got it, Johnny.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but JRobin wants to sit here and opine about accidental properties and Jesus could have like not had a beard and still be Jesus or something. But there's only one Jesus.
That's correct. See, this is what is very strange to me oftentimes. I listen to some Christians speak and I listen to some atheists retort. And oftentimes it's the case that it's like the atheist gets it and this particular Christian does not. That's always interesting to me.
Yeah, that's right, Johnny. You got it. I guess JRobin has tapped out.
Well.
is he reverting a little bit? I mean, is he JRobin again instead of Ramses?
Oh yeah, he's JRobin again. Yeah.
Okay. I was hoping I would have been wrong.
JRobin, Johnny, is a potential convert to Calvinism, but I think he needs some, he needs some coaching or some like consultation.
Yeah, he's not full on
He's not
tulip.
full on.
He's not full on tulip.
He's
He's
like
only
lip.
like the labia minora and not
Oh God.
the whole
Oh my
package.
god!
Come on, bro.
Well, I mean,
Wait, what's that mean?
Don't.
Yeah,
Of
well,
course
of course,
you don't know.
Billy, of course,
But
you
don't.
don't understand.
you ask your
But
parents,
Johnny, maybe
Billy.
you can.
Ask your
Maybe
parents.
you can help him, Johnny. I think you could help him because he's got some reservations. He's got some roadblocks. You're the king of Calvinism, right? So you could help him.
Well, he's not defending. He's already not willing to defend that first premise. So he might already be there. Just hasn't come out and said it yet.
I think he's got some reservations.
I think based on what I was listening to, I mean, I'd like to go through the whole tulip thing with him, but based on what I was listening to, I would probably say, yeah, he's reformed. But just because you're reformed doesn't mean you're going to get every little single detail down, such as necessitarianism and determinism. And I mean, there's going to be some things that, and I think he would say he's probably a new reformed guy or whatever.
A noob.
So
Yeah. He saw the errors of his
noob.
way. He saw the errors of his
Gotcha.
precept ways, and he's inching towards a system that'll help supporting this. Not so easily defeated his precept. He's looking for the next best.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think it comes with time and study and education and understanding and whatever. But oh
my God,
I would
like you
still
have
say
any time or understanding of anything, you're fucking
well,
moron.
everything doesn't
I
happen
don't know why
overnight.
people treat you like you're not a complete moron.
Well, you can treat me like that if you like. I don't mind.
I mean,
Johnny,
but everybody's
if
not
you're
going to get it overnight. Is what I'm saying.
But if
maybe
you're willing
like
to fight, sorry, go ahead, Billy.
My God.
One mic, guys. Come on.
Sorry.
I am across the other side of the world, so I was just saying that, Johnny, if only someone wrote a book about it, maybe they could give it to JRobin.
That's what you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Maybe an autographed
If only
copy
there
would
an
even
author
help
who's
us
written
to
a
sort of
book.
really solidify it.
I don't know why everyone's so mean to me.
Okay, Johnny, I just think you and he could talk. I'd be interested to see if you can get him all the way there.
I'm not
Close the deal, as it were. Because he's probably like 3/4 of the way there. Shut up, Billy. He's probably 3/4 of the way there, right? So I think you could just give him some tips and go on.
Wait, is Jack here? I'd like to ask him about this sort of necessitarian thing. Did you hear what I was asking about?
Yeah.
What do you think of that objection? Does that make sense?
That there's no distinction between essential and accidental properties on necessitarianism.
Yes.
I guess the only issue is it could be that if you sorry?
Someone
Sorry about
obviously.
that.
Oh, go ahead.
The only issue is that it seems like you could have red hair, even on necessitarianism, you could have red hair and then, thank you, and then change your hair color, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still be you.
Yeah, I agree.
But then, isn't that what they mean by an accidental property in that case?
No, I think what's meant that like at the moment you have red hair, could you possibly not have red hair at that moment? Like every moment is necessarily the way it is. It could not have been the case that when you had red hair, you could have had blonde hair. You can go through changes, and those were all necessary changes. But all those changes would be essential too.
Yeah, but the point is, they want to say there's distinction between um, there's a distinction between properties that are essential and properties that are accidental for a given entity, right? So let's say a person. So, for a given person, it might be an essential property that they have, like certain DNA or something like that, right? But and so that just means at every point of time and in every possible world that they exist, right? They always that if they exist, then those properties are instantiated, right? But maybe on necessitarianism, you could say, yeah, there still are accidental properties because there can be a change. Although there's only one possible world, there could be like a moment of time where you don't have a certain property, but you still exist, right? Another moment of time where you do have that property, and that's to be distinguished from an essential property, because if that property were not instantiated, you just wouldn't exist. You see what I'm saying?
Jack, let me see if I can put it. So I'm trying to see if I can put it a different way, or like that. I think that the way you articulated it is exactly my point. But more like, or like another way of putting it would be something like, I'm not a human in virtue of the fact that I have 433 hairs, and just, I'm a human in virtue of the fact that I have, as you said, like DNA. So the amount of hairs does not determine whether or not I'm a human. That's not what
Yeah,
humanity
I
refers.
think where there might be a problem,
Thank-
I don't know, maybe Detroyer has a view on this. I think where there might be a problem is that if at every point you exist in the only possible world, you have 433 hairs, then I don't see, it's not clear to me how you would make sense of a distinction, that it was accidental rather than central.
Yeah, so like maybe making a distinction, but like the very fact that it's an essential or like an accidental property, I think is what was being like. I think that's really like, okay, yeah, I might agree that it might be harder to make a distinction in such a world, but it could still be the case that that is or that is not an essential or accidental property, because it just what it means to be in virtue, like in virtue of what is it this being, like what are we referring to when we say that somebody is a human or somebody is a cow?
But I guess I'm not tracking the point that you're trying to make. It's probably my fault.
I think the changing of the hair color, like, yeah, you can dye your hair, but that doesn't change the root. That doesn't mean you can now grow red hair.
Exactly. Well, I mean, like changing your hair doesn't make you any less of a human, because that was never an essential property. Or shaving one hair follicle off does not make you any less of a human, because that's what it means for not to be an essential property.
But we're not talking
Like,
about what makes it essential to be a human. We're talking about what's essential for you to be you, not a human.
If there were many possible worlds, what would be the threshold that would make something not you? Like if it was a little bit different, the further away it was from this world, at what point does it become not you? Or is it
I mean,
gradual?
Jack,
I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think it makes a difference to refer to you or to refer to humanity, because in principle, the same thing still applies.
I mean, Jack, isn't your solution also compatible with each time there's any change, no matter how minute? It could be a different person.
Yeah, you could if you say that property is essential, then when they change, it's not the same entity that exists across time.
Right. It'd be like JRobin 1, JRobin 2, JRobin 3, JRobin 4.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to say that.
Johnny, are you a Calvinist, or are you a Calvinist but you just don't hold to Necessitarianism, or what's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Reformed. I don't really have a problem with Calvinist, I guess, but I'm a Necessitarian, hard determinist. So
what do you
yeah, I
mean?
mean, if that answers your question.
You said people don't get it. I don't know if you're talking. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or if there's something I wasn't getting in reality.
What was your question?
No, I'm saying earlier you were saying that you talk to atheists and you talk to Christians, and that there are atheists that get something more than Christians do. And I was wondering if you're saying that seriously, if you're saying that sarcastically, and if you were saying, okay, so this would be a great opportunity
Which
for me to
is
understand.
strange. It's interesting to
Okay,
me.
so what is it that atheists were understanding better than I was?
I think like what Tom was pointing
Well,
out, he
we don't have to have infighting. But
no,
like,
it's not infighting. I'm just saying when Tom pointed out, he said it's not a matter of just being human. He's talking about you as a person. It would no longer be you. And I gave the example that, if could God? I'm 6'2". Could God have made me 6'1"? Well, if 6'2" is who I am, then anything else other than that no longer. It means it's no longer me. Now that made perfect sense to me, and the way Tom described it, I thought that was actually very, I think he hit the nail on the head there. And a lot of Christians would be like, "Huh? What?" And I'm like, "This is just an example," and I've seen it several times where, atheists tend to. I've seen that several times with Haiti too. There's a lot of times she'll respond to something. I'm like, "Well, Haiti gets it like easily," and these other guys, these Christians, they're like, "Oh, what?" And that's always been fascinating to me.
But I think there is a way for Tom's objection to go through, though. It just occurred to me. You could say that it's an essential property that you're 6'2" after the age of whatever.
That's what I was going to say with the
being.
hair. It's like it's an essential property that you're going to dye your hair on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2019.
Yeah, you might be able to say that.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think in that case, like I of course don't believe that God could have created me any different way than He created me now. So like, I guess in order for me to be me, I have to have certain properties, and maybe like all of the properties that I have at like this point in time are like what make me at this point in time who I am at this point in time. I think that's, at least on the surface, it seems to make sense to me. But I don't know if that really applies to everything, because you could take like humanity, for example. So I think there can still be a distinction between essential and accidental properties, but maybe like in certain circumstances, maybe like, for example, all my properties right now in this time index are essential to who I am. I guess that makes sense to me the way you articulated it.
Well, if you look at the blueprint,
at the time, I didn't like respond directly. So like, I was still thinking about it, and then also, like, I didn't say anything. So I didn't affirm or deny anything. But then, like, now that you're articulating it this way, it seems like it makes sense. I don't have a problem with saying that, like, about myself.
You sound like a necessitarian as well. And when you were talking with Haiti about God being fair, I had that conversation with Haiti too. All the things that you were saying, I looked at it pretty much as, parallel to what I was saying. I don't necessarily look at God being fair in treating everyone, like giving them a pardon, or treating everyone with judgment in hell. And I do agree when you pointed out that when people talk about fairness, there does seem to be some sort of element of entitlement. I've said that before myself too. So a lot of the things you were saying, I thought if you're not a Calvinist, you're pretty damn close.
Yeah, I mean, I just like when I say I don't want to commit like fully to like a position without completely understanding all the entailments of it, and like I've talked to a few Calvinists and like Reformed people closely, and so that's why I'm saying like I'll be willing to say that I agree with a lot of what they say. The only reason I'm reluctant is because there's still certain things that I'm trying to figure out, and like in terms of like how God's going to deal with certain people and the way that like you might like say, okay, well, God is just in this way and like that. So like I'm still figuring that out. But I hold to a lot of the tenets that many Calvinists do, which is why I'm not afraid for arguing for those or like defending those.
Well, there's some things that aren't necessarily Calvinism. I think there's a lot of philosophy of Calvinism, perhaps, but but some of the things people do talk about, it's not simply, oh, this is Calvinism. Well, no, this is determinism or this is Necessitarianism. Well, yeah, but these are some of the elements you find within Calvinism, sure, but it's not simply to say, well, this is Calvinism, because I think some people can have some slight varying, positions on the philosophy without getting too crazy. But like, for example, Jesse Palm. Jesse Palm is indeed a Calvinist, but where he and I differ, he does believe that there are other possible worlds that God could have brought about. Now, I just staunchly disagree with that, but that doesn't mean he's not a Calvinist. He still is a Calvinist.
Yeah. So I guess maybe what I'll say, like there are certain philosophical beliefs that might be entailed by what I do believe that would cause me to maybe change what I do believe. Which I mean, okay, yeah. I mean, maybe something like that would be closer to it. I don't know. I just don't want to. I don't want to fully commit to it before I have more discussions with Calvinists and get a better picture of it. That's another thing. I want to be able to have more conversations with them.
Well, look, Ramses, there is no fence sitting here. You're either with us or you're against us. You got to choose one or the other. I mean, it's what it boils down to.
We will, if you want to do, if you want to talk with me about your philosophy, then we can do that. I'd be happy to. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's
sure.
kind of. But I don't think like regards to your earlier, I don't really think we disagree much at all, at least with regards to like the context of this discussion.
But, no, yeah. I think we're in unison for at least, the majority, if not super majority of the time.
Okay.
Do you notice though? Well, let me ask you: you say you're close to Calvinism. What were you closer to prior to Calvinism? Was it sort of like a provisionist, Arminian?
I don't know. I literally, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not a philosopher. I like to listen to debate. I like to talk to people, and I do read some like papers and some books and stuff. But I can't really say, I can't put a label on what I believed earlier. I did believe in. I didn't really. I can say this for sure. I did not accept the tulip beliefs. I didn't accept those 5 tenets. In my previous Christian life. And I would say I'm closer to accepting them now. I would say like that's why I say like I would say okay, yeah, this seems to be the case. This seems to be most consistent with the Christian worldview. But will I fully commit to it? It depends on like the implications. I still have to talk about it. But in most conversations, I'm going to defend, those things. But it seems to me it's kind of like that's true.
I would say I was probably more of an evidentialist years ago, and probably closer to where like a Matt Adams is. He's a provisionist. But the only difference is I never looked at something like the tulip and said, oh, I just simply reject it. I looked at it, at least at the time, and thought, how do I think about this? So there was really never a rejection. It's just I perhaps didn't totally understand all of it in its entirety there. But it was interesting to me nonetheless. Even at the time, I just perhaps maybe not had enough understanding, but there was never really a rejection of it. It's just I don't understand it enough to say, oh, okay, this is what I fully accept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and like that's what a lot of Calvinist Reformed people have told me. Because I've had objections to like certain. I was like, well, it doesn't seem like this would be the case. But then I talk to them, and then they give me resources, and then I take a look, and they're like, oh, I misunderstood what one of the tenets of Calvinism was. And so then I was like, okay, well, it seems like this is more in line with what I believe, and this is more consistent with Christianity. So then I would lean more towards accepting it. So I would agree with you there. That's kind of been my position as well. That I would say. At least in cases where I was closer to rejecting it, that kind of rejection was born out of a misunderstanding of what those tenets are.
Yeah, I think the first time I ever heard Calvinism really talked about much was from some discussion way back William Lane Craig was having. I first thought he said something like Catholic, because I wasn't even really familiar that much with Calvinism. And I thought, well, what was he talking about? And then he went in to mention a few things about Calvinism, and I thought, that kind of sounds sort of interesting. I just didn't even know much about Calvinism at the time, because I grew up in Southern Baptist. I mean, I'm in the South Bible Belt. There's a lot of Southern Baptists. Now, I would still say I'm Baptist, but it's more of a Reformed Baptist, so to speak. So is there
Johnny,
a huge variance?
are you thinking
Tom?
maybe that JRobin could become the fifth saint?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Tom. It's not going to be a fifth saint because he's perhaps, if he's the candidate, as you're mentioning, he's actually going to replace someone that is going to be expurgated from the saints.
What
is
He'd
this?
be
what
a
are you talking about,
replacement,
Johnny?
not so much an addition.
What am I being roped into?
There's a particular individual within the group of saints that I don't know. I've come to believe that my initial induction of him was perhaps a little too hasty and not well vetted. So I think he's going to be replaced.
Are you talking about James is tired?
No. I'm
Talking
actually
about John
speaking
Lee?
of an individual.
Is there like
No.
group? Is there a group of Calvinists online that you're trying to induct me into? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, there's a backstory here with certain people that have
Wait, who are you
identified as
talking
being
about
in this
then?
one
It's got to
particular
be
group.
Matt Adams. It's got to be Matt.
No,
No.
it's actually an individual that you guys don't know and have actually never met nor have ever talked to.
Oh,
So
okay. So you're saying
yeah, so
instead
you
of
all
the fifth saint, which you thought would be that guy, maybe it would be JRobin.
I mean, he's shown a lot of good potential here.
JRobin, are you aware that the Saints also have another name called apologetic whores? That might be a problem.
And the taints.
Yeah, that might be kind of problematic.
Well, that wasn't us giving ourselves that name. That's something someone else has attributed to us. Which I also find that to be very strange because what he accuses, say, Matt Adams and I of being, which I don't think we are, but isn't he doing the same thing? It's sort of like pot, meat, kettle, right?
Well, all saints are apologetic whores, but not all apologetic whores are saints. For instance, Andrew R. He's an apologetic whore, but not a saint.
Yeah, Andrew will not be inducted into the boys' club. He's so far out of the conclave. He'd have to have a lot of work.
He probably wouldn't. He probably wouldn't accept if you offered it either. I mean, I think there's a lot of daylight between your views.
No, if we offered it, he would accept it. There's no choice to not accept it.
That much of an honor.
Yes.
He's predetermined.
You don't turn down the invitation.
I see. I was out of line. I apologize. Thought there was some choice involved, but obviously
No,
not in that
there's not.
theology.
No, no.
Okay. Fair enough.
Tom, did you just call Johnny Hoss an apologetic whore to his face just now?
Oh no, Johnny, what do you think?
Damn.
I don't think so, but I mean, even if he did, I wouldn't mind.
Damn, what's going on?
I'm
So,
not as
Tom,
emotionally attached to these things like you are, Concrete.
respect? I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, you
I think
are all
respect.
about the meta
I
and the
think respect
drama and
matters
the
to you.
gaslighting and the personal
I think
issues with people.
I
Don't
think
take any of that
respect.
to bed with me.
Wait, Johnny, respect doesn't matter to you?
Childish name calling doesn't matter to him. Concrete. That's where.
Yeah, no,
one of the
that
places
stuff does not matter to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter enough for you to ignore it,
No,
but you
I
harp
actually don't
about.
command people respect me either.
Ooh, this seems so weird.
I don't demand that.
You guys are. Wow. I gotta say, Tom has a strong pimp hand when it comes to his apologetic whores. My goodness.
I mean, this is the attitude of Darth Dawkins, and a lot of people call his followers,
Hey,
his
Tom
minions
is
and such. I mean, everybody has a name for it. Who cares?
well, Tom is way cooler than Concrete anyway.
But isn't this evidence you're ingratiating yourself with people who don't respect you? Isn't that like the bigger point?
Well, I don't necessarily know if Tom does not respect me. I mean, he surely doesn't perhaps appreciate my theological views, but I don't think he has
Concrete,
to.
you constantly try to go in Darth's room and he hates you. You try to make up with him.
What does that have to do anything?
Yeah, Johnny, I even said that you're
What
my
does that
favorite
have to do
saint.
anything? So, Tom, is Johnny an apologetic whore? I just want to be
Any
clear,
concrete
such
through
there's
the
no
deed trees.
ambiguity.
It depends what's meant by that. If
It means somebody who's willing to roll over, show their soft underside, and be rubbed and petted for the sake of community or being accepted or being allowed to speak and all of that stuff.
he's willing in order to be accepted. I don't agree with that. I just think
Roll over and show his soft underbelly. Yes, all of those things.
Well, what does that mean?
Means that you value your relationship with these people such that you will tone down your objections and your behavior such to not be distasteful in their
really?
eyes.
That's have you been around? Is this your first day here? I mean, if you've not been around me for, I'm going to tone down just so people don't, detest my views. Are you kidding me?
Look,
you might be talking about Andrew R., but you're not talking about me. Look, concrete. Look, I'm not like you. I'm not trying to fight atheists. I'm not trying to beat atheists up. I'm not trying to win the game. I'm not trying to destroy them and humiliate them and do all of these things that it seems like you and many others are interested in doing. I mean, I will certainly talk about what I believe.
Johnny,
and I'll certainly point out where there's error, but I'm not.
How do you know I'm trying?
About like loved ones dying and burning in hell and things like that, or even the loved ones of atheists, and how you feel about that. And when you reply with something like, break out the marshmallows, this is Concrete's example of you just rolling over and
toning down.
Toning it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
me toning it down.
That would be like more descriptive of you owning them and owning the people you love in this cosmic sense. So
I don't think you know what you're talking about.
I mean, telling somebody about their loved ones who you think is going to hell, break out the marshmallows. If that's not dancing, pissing, spitting on somebody's grave, I don't know what else is. Right?
Yeah,
well, there's a bit of
so apparently
we're
that just
about
backfires on your greater than thou character that you tried to show us, because I wouldn't say such things, but you consider me someone trying to own somebody, right? I think you're saying something much more deplorable, but whatever.
Well, there's a bit of tongue in cheek in that, but at the same time, I
Oh,
don't
you were just
I don't really
joking,
care.
bro. Well, there you go. We
Well,
accepted it. We're cool then. Okay.
no, what I'm saying is concrete. I don't care who goes to hell. I don't care. That's what I mean by that.
Okay.
I don't care. I actually don't care who goes to heaven either.
It sounds like you care.
No, it doesn't matter to me. I've said this before too. It doesn't matter to me who the elect are and who the elect aren't. Doesn't matter. So, I mean, if you're looking to speak with a Christian and you're wanting some sort of watered, toned down, nicey nice type of interaction, you usually won't get that with me. What people usually say is Johnny's very, he's very blunt, he's very raw, he's very whatever, he's sort of stoic, he doesn't care, whatever. It's I don't really get too much of the, well, look at the way Johnny tones things down when he's talking to atheists. No, I'm just simply not trying to fight atheists.
I don't care if
You
my
and some of
children
these
are
other guys
elect
are.
or not.
Yo, Johnny.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
What was the
Wow.
conclusion of you and Concrete's discussion about God being able to lie?
I mean, would it still not matter if you're not the elect?
No matter who the elect is and isn't, doesn't matter. I think what Concrete was trying to say is not only does he believe God can lie, he thinks the writers in the Bible were essentially lying, and he's talking about how.
Whoa.
Yeah, we already discussed this, but you also said, well, I think there are other passages of Scripture that would show that God could. Well, let me ask you these other passages of Scripture from other authors that you think are showing, he could have lied. Were they lying? Why are you
Look,
appealing
Johnny.
to other passages of Scripture if you think they could be lying too? How would you trust anything in the Bible
Johnny,
if they
look.
all could be lying, Concrete?
Johnny, I'm gonna look at you just like I would anybody else in a very
Don't
unhealthy
answer the question.
relationship. Very unhealthy relationship. And I'm gonna say he doesn't love you. He doesn't love you. So stop calling him, stop showing up at his house, stop trying to
This is
be
why
his
you
friend.
get muted,
He doesn't
Concrete.
love you.
This is why you get muted in the atheist rooms and in the Christian rooms. This
I'm
is
sorry.
one of the
I'm
reasons.
sorry if the truth hurts you, sir. But
Yeah,
he
okay.
doesn't love you. He
Who's
doesn't
he?
love you.
Well,
who's he? Jesus?
You, Tom. You, Tom. You don't love Johnny Haas the way he needs to be loved, the way he wants to be loved, and it's readily apparent. And I'm tired of seeing you abuse him and abuse his desire to be loved and accepted by you. I'm tired
Johnny,
of
what
it.
the hell is this guy talking about?
You called him an apologetic whore
I have
to
no
his
idea.
face.
You sound like a maniac, Concrete.
Yeah, by Darth
You called
Slates.
him an
Yeah.
apologetic whore to his face, and he sat there and he took it.
Yeah, but like he knows that's just Darth bullshit. So what?
No. Tom, you have an easy time with Johnny. You guys have no acrimony. You are much more vitriolic, venomous, vindictive, 3 V's, with JRobin, who is a very mild-mannered young man. Jason Lee Scott called him a thug, or maybe resorting back to his thug ways. Right? How would you say that
That's
to
right.
a mild-mannered young man if you weren't
Excuse
trying
me.
to dog whistle or overplay your hand, right?
Concrete,
So
you were talking
where's
about
the
Venom.
venom for someone who says that they don't care if your loved ones go to hell and are roasted, but you have venom for mild-mannered JRobin? Make it make sense, other than Johnny Haas is a useful tool, and we all know it.
Johnny, what's he talking about?
You're calling Johnny a tool?
Concrete's putting out enough venom. He actually drawed
just
me out of
emoting.
general chat.
He called you a tool, good sir.
You could do a poll of the room and see who thinks who is a bigger tool between Concrete and Johnny. It'd be an interesting poll. I'd be interested in those results.
Concrete just went on like an unhinged rant.
Yeah,
No one knows why. No
He
one
really
knows
wanted
why.
there to be something behind me calling you an apologetic whore, Johnny, when it's just like me like parroting some Darth fucking, I don't know, Darthism.
Well, there were some serious allegations against Concrete there about like saying scripture lies or something.
Yeah, he says that God can lie. Therefore, when the Bible is divinely inspired, that inspiration could have come from a lie.
The Bible says God cannot lie.
But according to Concrete, that could be a lie.
But if a liar says he's lying, he's telling the truth. See.
There has been some increased activity with John Lee in the barbecue chat of one of the servers. He is becoming more and more active in text.
Good news.
That's phase 1. Phase 2, of course, is actually going to be showing up in a VC, and of course he'll have only like 1 or 2 word responses or no talking at all, maybe even just text chatting. And then, we'll go from there. We all know the pattern, right? So
Is it
he's
day 3?
inching closer by the day.
Yeah,
Day 4?
He's clearly
not as long as I thought it was.
Itching to come back. No, it was he left on October the 30th. So it's been about 8 or 9 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Did he
What
did
is
he say
today?
something about if Nephilim 3 was talking, he'd be like compelled to
Yes.
join
Well, he
in
said
on
he'd be
it?
very tempted to come
Ugh.
in to join. I don't know what that was about. No one wants to talk to Nephi.
Yeah, that's kind of a Sophie's choice because we don't want to talk to Nephi either.
But he was actually very friendly with me and talking with me, so he's definitely having the itch.
But you don't talk to Nephi, he talks to you. That's how it
I'm
works.
talking about John.
When it comes to Nephi, I'd rather talk to a flat earther, any other flat earther than him.
Johnny, Concrete even told me that God could kill himself.
I'm not surprised that he said that.
My question would be how?
Oh, you explain that.
Well, he died on a cross, so.
No, the cosmic gun.
Well, the cosmic gun wasn't invoked by Concrete because he wants to distinguish himself. Not that if God killed himself with the cosmic gun, that's crazy. He wouldn't say something like that. He would just say something like it's possible for God to kill himself.
Just remember, it's in the name. Concrete. It can't change. It's stuck the same once it cures its way.
If JRobin is looking to make himself bulletproof, it does seem to be true that kind of, if you're willing to accept the way Johnny is apparently, Calvinism does seem proof with a lot of the ordinary arguments against theism, right?
You're breaking up. You're breaking up, AP. You're breaking up really bad.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Johnny, I find it really interesting that you don't give a flying F shit, whatever, that one of your kids ends up in heaven with you, but you sure did seem to care that my mom would. That's interesting. That's interesting.
Well, it was on the assumption that your mother went to heaven. You said she was a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that talk was based on the assumption that she was saved and she's going to spend eternity in heaven, just as Christians believe that all who are saved are going to spend eternity in heaven. I don't know what that has to do with whether it matters to me who goes to heaven and who doesn't.
Well, it mattered to you a lot when you were using it as an argument against whatever I was saying at the time.
Oh.
Well, what was being used against anything?
Oh, what were we specifically arguing about? That particular element of your, counterexample against me.
that my
Is that
mom
how
would be
you
in
feel about your
heaven.
children being in hell, maybe?
It was really important to you
Was
that
it
my
that?
mom was going to be in heaven and that you're going to be hanging out with her, having a great time, partying her. But your kids being in heaven, whatever.
I think you're trying to conflate the two. It doesn't matter to me who goes to heaven and who doesn't. But to those that I do believe are going to heaven, yes, I believe I will spend eternity with them. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand the
He doesn't care
association that
about
you're trying to
atheists. He
draw
just
here.
writes a book about them.
I don't understand the association you're trying to draw here. What argument are you saying that I was trying to use to rail against you or something? I mean, you're not.
All I'm saying again is that it was important to you that my mom was going to be there and that I wasn't, and you're going to be enjoying her company and I wasn't. But
Right.
when asked about whether it mattered to you whether your kids are there or not, you're like,
Okay. Again, I don't see the relation.
I know you
don't
don't, Johnny. It's
care
okay.
who
It's
goes
okay.
to heaven.
I don't accept somebody who's self-lobotomized themselves emotionally like you have to understand what I'm
Look,
talking about.
look,
It's
look,
okay. It's okay.
Andricus, this is very simple for me. I don't care who God chooses. That doesn't matter to me. That's his doing. That's not my doings. I
As long
can't do
as you're in
anything
the right
about it.
side, right? As long as you're in the lake,
Well, I
it
like
doesn't matter
being
as
in
long
that
as.
side. Yeah, I mean, I like being in that side, but I can't do anything about who God chooses and who he doesn't. So therefore, it doesn't matter to me. God's going to be God. God's going to do what
So
God does.
You can still
would
have
it
hope,
matter to
Doesn't
you
matter.
if you're
right?
self-deceived and you're not the elect? Like, would it matter to you
It
if
doesn't.
you realized you're not the elect?
Is this difficult to understand?
Do you know you're the elect? Do you know you're saved? How
He
do you know
does
that?
know he's the elect. But Johnny, can't you still
Well,
have
how do you know
hopes
that?
that your son will be in heaven with you? It seems
Have
silly
you
to me to
produced
say you
enough?
don't care
All
just
right.
Have
because
you
you don't have
produced
Dude,
enough
take
control.
it easy,
fruits?
bro. Dude, take it easy.
Are you
Why
living
couldn't
holy enough?
why can't you just say you hope your son is in heaven with you?
Well, I could, but would that even matter? Well, because
Well,
I
I'm not
don't
saying it
know
would
if God
matter.
has
I'm just saying
chosen.
that's the sane thing to say, right? Not to say I don't care. That seems kind of crazy. And your reasoning for, quote, not caring is that you can't control it. I can care about a lot of things I have no control over. That doesn't seem to be
Well,
a
to say
reason.
that yeah, but to say that I care or don't care, I think that's what I'm really meaning is to me, it just does not matter. Doesn't
That's the
matter. Like,
same
for
as
example, I
that's the
will
same as
still
not
enjoy
caring.
heaven whether my son is there. Well, but wait a minute. I will still enjoy, as I see it, I'll still enjoy heaven whether my son's there or not. Now, if you, Jane, get saved and come and are going to be in heaven, excellent. That's great.
I mean,
But
to
if you're not,
quote the
then
great
okay.
R.C. Sproul, right? When you're in heaven and you're looking down at your loved ones burning in hell, in eternal torment and anguish, you will be so sanctified that you will be happy.
That's right, Tom.
Wait, but would Johnny really be happy if Jane were in heaven with him? Would he really be able to enjoy it?
I don't know if she would enjoy it, but I don't have a problem with Jane. She might not like it very well, but I don't have a problem with Jane.
Do you get free will in heaven? I know you don't have free will here, like libertarian, but are you determined to do what you're going to do in heaven too?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when God, there is that character change, being born again, you're made a new creature, as Scripture does teach. I think it's going to be the case, perhaps similar to the way, angels are. I don't say exactly, but I do say similar. We'll be without sin. We're going to have sort of the mind of God. So we'll be like Christ in that fullness, I guess you could say. So is there a free will? I mean, again, it's like there's things that we will have a will to do, but it's only going to align with that which is not sinful and that which aligns with God and all of these things. So even then, a free will still seems.
Why did he create
what
the
does
angels
all
with
that
a
mean?
sinful nature?
That's an interesting question because I was actually going to ask, maybe it was JRobin or someone before. I said, "Do you think God loves the angels?" Now, in the sense of when I mean love, what I think most people mean to be colloquially, is, having a deep affection for someone, the way you would your child or your wife or whatever. Do I think God had that love for angels in the personal, deep affection sense? Well, to me, no. I think God created angels to be servants. Now, do I think he loves them in the sense that he sees his work, which they are, as good, and the things that they do? Well, yeah, but that deep personal affection, because Scripture teaches that Jesus even said he did not come to help the angels, or he does not help the angels. So they are just mere servants. I don't think, that's why I say I think we would be similar, but not exact. I don't think we were just simply mere servants. I think we were created different from the angels insofar as having that deep, affectionate, loving relationship as a father has with his child. I don't think the angels have that.
Real
I don't
quick,
think Adam had that either.
let me
By
just
the
read
way.
a real quick YouTube comment. This is from CW. It says, "This is trash. Period. JRobin hasn't gotten any better." Oh, come on, man.
That's mean-spirited.
Come on, man.
I'm trying to figure out where all this JRobin hate's coming from. I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, I think it was clear in the comment. There are people, a lot of them, similar to this guy CW, that think you are trash.
Yeah, I think the
That
question
doesn't
still stands.
explain
I
where
think
it comes
the
from.
question, right, exactly. I think the question still stands.
Oh, the explanation for why he thinks you're trash?
Well, I think the explanation for where it comes from is probably past behavior. They're aware of the stuff you used to do, JRobin.
Right. So
Somebody said,
this
somebody said
comment here seems to allude to okay, so let's look at the comment. This is trash, period. JRobin hasn't gotten any better. Right. So the idea here is that your performance is poor, right? Like the implication here is if you had improved in your way of argumentation, discourse, your rhetoric, your whatever it is, the amalgamation of all it is to be debating in one of these arenas, right? It has not improved, and that's what accounts for you being trash. And he's saying if that had improved, if you were up here instead of down here, then you wouldn't be trash anymore. But the fact that you haven't gotten any, he says JRobin hasn't gotten any better, right? And that's the reason why. So he's pointing to these metrics of debate.
I'm still confused about what this metric is that this guy. I mean, of course, this guy's probably not in the room right now, so I can't talk to him. I'm just very confused about what metric this person's using. I haven't been disrespectful to anyone, so if that debate factor is being considered, that's not the case. I've made it clear that I have certain positions. Really, this isn't a debate. I've never classified this as a debate. I'm merely having conversations with people in the room. But other than that, I don't understand where performance. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to have a conversation, and there are going to be things that, as with any other conversation with anybody else, there are things that I don't know, and I've been clear about my ignorance on certain topics and my willingness to fix that. I'm really confused about trash. I'm just very confused.
Refuse, garbage.
I'm very confused about this. I don't know where that's coming from. That's really the main question. Where is this JRobin hate coming from?
Well, JRobin hate isn't anything new, right?
Or we're talking about right now. Talking about right now. So I'm just curious about where this is coming from now.
Didn't you say you wanted to throw babies into hell? Wasn't that you?
No, I never said that.
Who am I thinking?
I mean, you can't think of anything you've done in the past, JRobin, that might have.
We're not talking about the past. We're talking about
people to think. Oh, I see. So your past is wiped away.
Well,
We're just talking about.
Look at this Christian.
People can make mistakes in the past. I mean, if you wanted me to pull up, if I had access to all the mistakes you made in the past, and I started talking to you about your trash, even though.
Well, I mean, I think it's part of it. I think that's part of the explanation, though. You seem to be puzzled about it, and I think that's part of the explanation is the past. I mean, maybe you're saying past shouldn't be considered, but doesn't it sound like CW has known of you in the past? And this is sort of what the
Hello?
reference is to? Yeah.
Sorry, I got a phone call. I'm gonna be picking up this phone call in like 5 minutes. Okay, so
Yeah, okay.
1 second. Let me just.
You know, I once paid for a
I don't
debate
know where this.
between
I don't.
Arianis and T-Jump and the resolution was, is T-Jump an idiot? And so he argues against him being an idiot. Would you be willing to engage in a similar debate where you defend that you're not trash?
No, I'm not gonna defend whether or not I'm an idiot as if moderator. I'm not doing
Well,
that.
I didn't say idiot, I said trash.
No, I'm not doing that either. Okay.
Okay, but do you deny it though?
Okay, I'm not having this conversation.
Okay,
So
well, that's fair.
I'm
you know.
curious. I'm just curious where it's coming from.
Uh-huh.
What justifies this? That's all I'm saying. But anyways, I have to
Your
pick up this
past
phone.
behavior.
Well,
JRobin, what
I'm
did you
willing
do that
to-
was so
I'm willing
bad?
to, like, so for example, if
Uh-huh.
there is anything, I'll just make this public right now. Okay, if there's anything that I said that was offensive to anyone unduly or anything like that, you of course bring it up. I don't have access to every conversation I've had in the past. If there's anything I did to anybody that was offensive, of course I apologize for that. Sorry for that. But as of like these several conversations I've been having in the recent past, I'm just curious if any of that is used as justification for calling me trash. If you want to call me trash based on past experiences, okay, maybe I've made mistakes in the past, and I wouldn't. I don't know.
That's
I don't
what
know
it
what
is.
you're talking. I don't know
I
what
think
specific.
I think people are just mad about the past, JRobin. They don't,
Okay,
that's what it
people are
is.
mad about the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
JRobin, what did you do to these people?
I mean,
I
I
don't
get the
know.
feeling
I
from
don't
the
even know. Like
comment that it's like
even in the past, I don't know.
sort
I
of
don't know what would
argumentation
justify
hasn't
calling me
really
trash.
like improved at all. It's still very lackluster
Yeah.
and
Maybe a
like
suspicion you
it's
haven't
not
changed.
compelling at all.
Yeah.
Yo, JRobin, do you know AP, this ankle biter here, saying that you haven't changed, trying to wag his little finger? Do you know he's a Christian?
I mean, it could be that they just associate you with your past.
He
behavior.
is a
It'd be
attack
hard to break
dog
that up.
for atheists.
Is all.
And
Yeah, it's strange.
JRobin is.
I'm just
he
curious. Like,
doesn't.
what?
Very
Okay,
ferocious.
so let's say I gave a bad argument, okay, in the recent past. If this is like assuming that they're not talking about the very distant past, like years ago, months ago. Okay, let's say they're talking about the recent past within the past few weeks that I've been more active on here. Okay, let's say I gave a bad argument. Trash. Okay, a bad argument is quite a few degrees of magnitude below trash.
Okay, what if
So
I
I'm
could?
still
Okay,
very
how about
confused.
this? How about what if I could get CW in the YouTube chat to just tweak his statement to something like JRobin is refuse? Would that kind of like be a middle ground you'd be comfortable
Those
with?
mean the same thing to me.
Oh,
I don't.
well, I mean, okay. I mean,
It's fancy
That
trash.
was funny. That was funny, Tom.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he was assuming that I didn't know what the word refuse meant.
Wait, let me
and
see if I can do it.
blindly like accept that.
JRobin, is there anyone
He was
who?
making a joke. He wasn't trying to trick you.
JRobin, is there anyone who you think is a trash at debating?
No, I'm not going to characterize anybody as being trash at debating.
How
I would
about
say that there are people. I
like
would say
the nice version of trash? What you're willing to
no, I'm not.
admit?
No. I mean, I would say that there are certain people and arguments and certain people who've given like
Who's
arguments
the
that I don't like.
worst of them?
I'm not going to categorize people as being best or worst because I'm not here to have a bunch of
that's
people.
fine too. Then think of the attributes that person has, and just that's pretty much what they're talking about. That's a trash person.
Okay, I've been able to successfully negotiate with CW in the chat. He's willing to revise. He's willing to revise the statement from trash to garbo.
Oh, garbo.
No, just to be clear, it's not garbage. He's saying garbo, which is kind of like a little bit more like levity to it. You know,
tongue in cheek. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel a lot better about that. Okay.
Okay. Well, there you go.
All right. Well, I gotta go. I'll be back later sometime, maybe.
Jay, before you go. Hey, JRobin, before you, well, I don't know if he left, but I was just going to say, look, if you're going to be, there's one thing you need to learn quickly. If you're going to be a Calvinist, you don't apologize for anything. So you don't need to do that.
Are you writing this down?
Good segue.
I can apologize. So again, if I've been rude to anyone in the room or anyone listening, I apologize for that bad behavior, and hopefully that does not taint any potential future relationship.
Okay,
that we
I
may
accept your apology, JRobin.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel like that's kind of disingenuous. You know that,
JRobin, I
like,
accept your apology.
Okay.
oh,
You're
that's
welcome.
sweet.
Thank you.
On behalf of
like-
everyone who's ever been harmed by you.
Remember
you,
when
Tom.
I told you to think about the person who's pretty
what
much trash? Like, that person's not merely rude. They do other things.
That's what I'm trying to figure. I don't know. Like, what if I like? Look, I have like this is an internet. We're having internet Discord discussion. I'm a random person online.
Well, this is serious business,
I don't know.
nonetheless.
I don't know. I don't know.
You just can't
what
remember
I
a
could've done that's
single
been
thing
so bad on
that would have been
Discord.
offensive.
I don't like. I
Wait,
don't know. I don't like. I've never cursed anyone out. Like people. Have
I
done
can
that to
give
me.
you an
I've never-
example.
I've never-
I can give you an example. I can give you an example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you remember the video where
I
you?
do have to call this person back. Okay. I don't want to be here too long.
Remember
Okay,
the
go ahead.
video where you were relentlessly called Brenda Brendan?
Oh, he remembers.
Yeah,
it.
I already apologized.
I know that, but you didn't know. I know you apologized to Brenda, but other people might not know that, and other people might hold harsh feelings towards you over that. It was pretty
Some
mean. what you
random
did.
dude on the internet
Yeah,
just
and
holding harsh feelings
again,
about that.
like, okay, so if that's what they're going by, fine. Like, again, that's fine. I'm just responding. I'm just talking to the people who can hear me right now. Okay.
Look, JRobin, if you're gonna be a Christian, you're gonna have to have thicker skin, man. You're gonna understand that there are people that even if you won a debate and showed the other person was an idiot, they're still gonna say you're trash. It's not like something like you did something. People disagree with you.
I would disagree with that.
I'm not like no, that's not what I'm saying. So I'm not saying. Yeah, like I agree with you, right? And at the end of the day, people are going to say what they're going to say. I'm just curious where it's coming from. I'm just curious if it's
yeah.
justified.
Well, we kind of want to. One last question before you go, because I know you need to go. And this is a serious question.
I don't think it is, but okay.
Now you're back on Discord. Do you have any plans of taking your rightful place by Darth's side?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't have unconditional allegiance to anyone on their side. I'm not on anyone's side. I just
do it.
Have my beliefs, and that's it. People can agree and disagree. But I'm not going to answer your question. I'm not going to be on anyone. I'm not going to be on anyone's side. No.
Okay, but you realize that what you're doing right now, according to Darth, you would fall under the category of apologetic whore, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't even know where this term is coming from. But again,
ignorance is not an acceptable excuse for Darth.
Look, everyone, we're all just random people online. It's not that deep. It's not that serious. Okay.
Oh, it's serious.
I think that's kind of granted, right? Given that, in the context that we're in, we're talking about who's trash, who's a whore or whatever, right? We all get it. This is just not IRL. Now, just move on from that.
Well, no, because it seems like these people have like a very deeply personal thing. Like the way that some people talk to me, it seems very deep personal. That's what it seems like. That's just my observation. Now, could I be wrong about that? Of course.
Look, I can appreciate that could even be true, but you've made the same qualification, and look, those people are just not going to get it, and everyone else knows that this is online blood sports. It's not real life stuff. So, given the domain we're in, who's trash? Why would you still follow Darth Dawkins? Answer those questions.
I don't follow Darth Dawkins. Okay, so again, I'm gonna.
That was really brevity. Why would you still support him or whatever?
I don't support they're. I'm gonna.
Oh, my bad.
I'll call out any instances in the past, and now and in the future. If somebody asks me and they give me example of when Darth has done something, improper or whatever, I'll be willing to say if I think it's improper that it's improper. I don't have, again, I'm not on anyone's side. I don't have any allegiance.
All right, we get it.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, stop qualifying that. We all get it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, people are asking me, so that's why I'm just responding. But okay, anyway, I gotta go. I'll talk to y'all later.
Hey, Johnny, you still there?
I am.
That was a pretty cool, ironic thing you said earlier, that apologists should be completely unapologetic. I thought that was pretty funny. But I remember what it was.
Calvinist, I think.
Oh,
he
Calvinist.
said,
Calvinist apologist.
Calvinist.
Apologetic. I remember what we were talking about that kind of made you go that route of talking about my mom in heaven. We were talking about how at my mom's funeral, I was really upset that I just happened to be the only person that actually talked about who my mom was. Everybody else only talked about what she did for them in relationship to God, but nobody spoke about who she was. Went at length about that, and then you came back with, you're going to be partying with my mom in heaven. So it seems to me that you actually did care about that notion, because it actually had nothing to do with what I was talking about.
Well, it was a little bit of a dig because if I do recall, you came into the
there
room.
You go. Thank you.
Into a Christian. Well, sure, but you came into a Christian room. You were, complaining about what Christians do, and then you gave an example like, look here, my mom, for instance, her funeral. All these Christians did, which was talk about God and glorifying God and this and that. And that seemed to bother you. Now, for Christians, we're like, well, I think this is probably what your mom would have appreciated, right? But the thing is, you came in complaining about it. Well, I tend to sometimes be the type that if you're going to complain and bitch and whine and all that, I sometimes end up giving the person something to complain and bitch and whine about. Now, maybe that's a character flaw in me, but I think that's what was going on there.
I'll give you something to cry about, you little.
Caring about your mom and who she was.
But it's not the case that I didn't believe in what I'm. Well, but Andrew, it's not the case that I was just digging at you in a sense that I actually didn't believe in what I'm saying. No, I still believe in what I was saying.
Right. So you actually care about my mom being in heaven with you.
Well, it's also done to see a response as well. It's sort of probing for a response, because it's like, why would some people in this case, you in this particular situation, why would that anger you? You don't believe there's a heaven, right? You don't believe there's a hell, right? So what? But it's awfully funny to me how that
I can
sort
answer
of
that.
elicits a response.
Okay, so it would anger me if that happened, because what you're doing, what I think Androcus was complaining about the funeral, and that people weren't celebrating his mother as a person. And for him, that's upsetting because there isn't a heaven, right? And so you insinuating that this slight against him and that he wanted this experience of people celebrating his mother, it doesn't matter because she's going to be celebrating in heaven with me. That would be upsetting because you're slighting his offense. He still has the same complaint that the funeral didn't, he didn't have the experience he wanted at the funeral with his mother. It's not that he's mad that you're going to be like celebrating with his mother in heaven, because like you said, he doesn't believe in heaven. It's that you were dismissing his concerns about the funeral by saying, it doesn't matter because she's going to be in heaven with me. Ha ha ha. That's why.
Well, that's not what it seemed that he was offended by. He wasn't simply.
Oh, that's dead on.
Yes, that is what he was offended by. I don't know what you think.
To me, it sounded like he wasn't simply offended only by the fact that all of these Christians at this funeral were talking about, God in relation to his mother being a Christian. It seems to me he was a little more offended, and he moved his ire, I guess you could say. He moved his ire more toward what I said than what he was so-called originally complaining about. It's almost like that didn't matter anymore. I'm now more pissed off at what Johnny said. I'm going to focus on that from now on.
Because you were dismissing his original argument, his original offense. He was mad at you because you were dismissing his original complaint, not because of the thing you said necessarily. It's that you were saying, who gives a shit what you think about your mother's funeral, because she's going to get an eternity celebrating. You were dismissing his complaint instead of saying, yes, that must have sucked.
Let's put it this way.
If you're going to come into a Christian room, hold on one second. If you're going to come into a Christian room and like, hey, Christians, let me tell you how much I think you people suck, because this is what happened at a particular Christian funeral. Well, what do you think the Christians are going to do? You think they're going to be like, oh, you know what, we're so sorry about that? No, Christians are not going to do that.
You could acknowledge the harm that was caused. Like, that's a normal human response.
I can't.
No,
Why can't you?
I would say, I'm sorry
okay, never mind then.
She was a better experience.
Emotionally self-lobotomized. Listen, Johnny, can you tell me you do not care about who your mother is, or I don't know if she's still alive or not. Do you not care about who your mother is as a person? Is it not important to you at all?
Yeah, I do care about who my mother is, sure.
Like what makes her who she is, the things she says, does, all that kind of stuff. That's important to you.
Sure.
So you can understand then, right?
Okay. And
so what was the justification for saying that you're going to be partying in heaven with my mom and I'm not? And that was some kind of dig. That was some kind of justified dig back at me.
yeah, you were already complaining. So I was just giving you more to complain about. But at the same time, I was also seeing how you would respond to that. And just about each and every time when something like that comes up, the people who don't believe in heaven seem to get awfully emotional when someone says, guess what?
Still
I'll be
doesn't
with your
get it.
mother in heaven and you
Still
won't.
doesn't get it.
Well,
So
maybe I don't.
You just said that who your mother is important to you. I
Okay.
give an example of what I find to be problematic paradigmatically in the Christian world, where who the person is does not matter. All that matters is God, 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 God. The person doesn't matter at all, right? And you take that to mean I need to take a dig at his feelings and relationship about his mom to get him to stop complaining.
Well, you did stop complaining about
Oh
facts
no,
and
fuck no, I
started
didn't.
complaining about
Fuck
me.
no, I didn't. Matter of fact, I still am.
What do you think
Yeah, he's
Christians were
complaining
going to
about
do?
it right now.
Sympathize? You think Christians were going to sympathize with you on that?
Some of
I'm
them,
just
yeah.
curious.
Some of the ones that aren't
Yes.
emotionally self-lobotomized, yes.
How many of
Yes,
them
we
did
do sympathize
that?
with it. Yes, we do sympathize with that.
How many of them did that
I've
that
lost
day
my
in that room?
parents. I think it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to say.
I'm asking Andricus, in that room that day, how many Christians, I think John Lee was there as well too, how
Oh,
many
well.
Christians sympathized with you that
No,
you
I
recall?
don't remember because I was focused on you.
You're right, yeah. So that really didn't matter, did it now?
Wait,
It
what
mattered
didn't matter?
more what I had
Wait,
to
what
say.
what didn't matter? I'm talking
You weren't
post.
focused on the fact that people at the funeral were celebrating God and praising God. That's
What
what you
after you
initially
said what
came
after
into the
you
room.
said what you said?
Yeah.
Duh, jackass.
Yeah, that because what you initially came in for no longer mattered.
No, it does matter, but I'm still going to focus on your
Evidently
bullshit.
not as much.
I'm still going to focus on your bullshit and call you out on it.
Well,
Especially and you brought it up and you reminded me of it today when you made that ridiculous statement. I'm just going to call you an outright liar, and I don't believe you when you say that you do not care whether your children end up in heaven with you or not. Bullshit.
It does not matter to me.
Bullshit. You
I
care about
cannot
whether
do
my mom.
anything
You care about
about
whether
it.
my mom was in heaven or not to dig at
Again,
me.
just because you
No,
have no
it still
control
doesn't
over
matter.
it doesn't mean that it wouldn't matter. I
Well,
have very passionate opinions about things that I have no control over. I don't understand why you would say that it doesn't matter because I have no control over it.
well, that's what I mean by not caring.
Nonsensical.
It's not that I don't have any sort of
So you do care, like
enjoy.
you would prefer it if your son was in heaven with you versus him not being in heaven with you.
Well, I mean, look, naturally, if I'm a recipient of something, I would surely, as in my own nature, like to see others experience the same joy that I have too. But Jane,
I
I'm
don't know why
trying to
you would say
explain
it
something
doesn't
to you.
matter.
It doesn't matter to me in the sense that whatever God is going to do, whether my child will go to heaven or not, that doesn't matter. In other words, either way, I'm fine with either one. I will
Baby
be
girl.
fine
Then when
with
I
either one.
asked you just now if you would prefer it if he was up there
If
with
it were
you
up to
versus
me,
not, and you said I would prefer it, then
if it were
one
up
of
to
those is
me,
incorrect. You can't say I'm fine either way, and I'd prefer him being up there
but you're
over him
asking
not.
me, Jane, you're asking me what I prefer.
Right.
But that's
That
not
was
going
the
to
question.
be okay, fine, but that's not going to be dictated on who goes to heaven and who doesn't.
I
That's
never
for
said
God
it
to
was,
decide.
Johnny.
Well,
I
this is
never
how
said
I'm
it was.
looking at it.
No, but listen, you said both that you would prefer him to be in heaven versus not, and you don't care either way. And those both can't be true.
It can be true, meaning that if my
No,
son
it
or
can't.
whoever, well, for me, it can. If they don't get to heaven, what am I going to do? Am I going to cry about it? Nope.
That's not the question. The question was, would you prefer him being in heaven with you versus not being in heaven with you? You said yes. Then you said,
Okay.
I don't care either way, meaning you don't prefer him being in heaven with you versus not, meaning you have no preference. That's a contradiction. You can't say that you both prefer choice A and you don't care. You can't say that.
Just because you can't do anything about it doesn't mean you don't care.
I prefer my wife to fix, chicken tonight. But if she fixes spaghetti, I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's the same level of importance.
Then you don't prefer her to pick chicken. If you're fine, if it's equal. No, but you don't. If you are equally okay with chicken versus spaghetti, then you don't prefer chicken over spaghetti if they are the same.
It's based on what I like or what I have a preference for. If I have a preference for chicken, but it's who's going to ultimately decide what I have for dinner.
It doesn't matter who's deciding. The point is, you're saying I both prefer chicken and I don't prefer chicken. You're saying both of those things at the same time.
Maybe I just don't understand what you're trying to explain to me then.
Baby girl, my beautiful child, who I love so much, and you're one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So glad you're here in this life. But you know what? I don't give a fuck whether you end up in heaven.
Well, that seems to be.
If you don't understand like how insane your views are, it's just wacky, man. Like you're telling me that you love somebody, right? But you don't care if they burn eternally.
Calvinism is not for everyone. Christianity is not for everyone.
Emotionally self-lobotomized.
Of course, people are going to think
what I'm saying, dude. This is what you start saying every time you get cornered. Every time.
Wait, I thought Christianity.
I agree, Sully.
Sully,
it's extremely boring.
I would love to hear you yell at him, but you need to fix your audio.
Yeah, the audio's bad.
I thought Christianity was supposed to be for everybody, Johnny. I thought that was the whole purpose, was for us to all come together as one and give our faith to God so that we may enter heaven and have a peaceful eternal life all as one.
Thank you.
No, Christianity is not for everyone. But as far as the preference, look, Christians are told to go out and pray for everyone, right? Even though Christians know not everyone is going to heaven, we're still to pray for them. Well, pray for what? Are we praying that they go to hell? No, that's not what we're praying for. We're praying that God either opens their eyes, changes their heart. That's sort of the preference that I'm talking about. And even Christians are to do this when we go out and spread the gospel to others.
Why though?
Let me finish. That is sort of the preference that I'm talking about, even though Christians realize that although we pray that whoever we encounter and we're praying for, that God forgive them, open their eyes, change their heart, all of these things, we still are under the understanding that not everyone is going to. So that's what I'm talking about in regards to, say, a preference, but at the same time, if I'm praying for a particular individual or another Christian is praying that God opens this particular non-believer's eyes, that may be a particular preference, I guess, but it's not so much that it's like if it doesn't happen, then it's either way, whatever. So what?
Why would God command you to do something, the praying for other people's salvations, that has no use? It doesn't help anything.
That's what God tells us to do.
My son, my beautiful son, my younger version of me, the young man I'm hoping to shape into being an amazing person. I am so glad you're here on this earth and that you're my son. And I don't give a fuck whether you end up in heaven.
Well, you may say that, but I don't. But the fact that we are to go out and pray for others, when God issues a command like that, for me anyway.
Wait. Are you challenging the notion that I said?
Let me finish.
Are you just saying I can think that you don't? Are you telling me you think otherwise?
I'm going to finish what I had to say.
No. Are you telling me you think otherwise?
I'm responding to what Jane was talking about.
All right.
In regards to what God has commanded us to do as Christians, the fact that he ordered it done is sufficient enough for me to do it. I don't have to get really tied up in the detail because he's our father, so to speak. Right, I don't have to get tied up into the details of the case that not everyone is going to be saved.
Why would you waste your time and energy?
I don't know why. I don't know why God does all that He does. He doesn't.
No, but
let me
what
in
I'm
on every
saying is,
single
even
detail.
according to your own doctrine, it's pointless. So I don't know why He would have you waste your time and energy doing
God has a
something that's
reason
pointless.
Well,
What is
God
the
has
reason?
a reason for it. I don't know, but I don't think because I don't know, therefore there's no reason. I could simply say I believe there's a reason. Just may not know what it is, but this is what God has told us to do.
But you know that it does nothing, correct?
I don't know that.
You know that your prayer has no effect on God's sovereignty
I don't look
or
at it
will.
that way.
You think that you can change God's will with a prayer. Yeah, so
No,
it does
Jane,
nothing.
Jane, let me try to explain this to you. It's not that I'm trying to change God's mind, but I think in the things that God does do, He utilizes prayer as a means about to bring it to pass. So God is still making utility out of things like prayer and just everything
Well, wait, how
else.
does
But it doesn't
prayer
mean I'm
bring
changing His
anything to
mind.
pass?
I think God is using it as a
How?
utility in order to. Well, I don't know, but Jane, we see in Scripture
Right, but no,
where it
listen,
talks about others were to pray.
if you're saying that prayer can do something as a utility to bring about His ends or whatever the fuck you just said, then it has to actually do something. And if it does something, that means it's changing God's sovereign will, right? Which you don't think is possible.
Yeah, no, I don't see it the way you're
If
saying.
it's not doing anything, then how is He using it as a tool?
No differently than, for example, you as an atheist. You don't believe in God, right? You don't pray to God. You don't do any of that. So, I mean, is there something that you're doing that's going to change God or whatever? Well, no, but I still think God is making
Here's a
utility
better
out of
question.
you, Gene.
Why does God need tools? Right? See, the reason that human
That's the
beings
way
use
He
tools
decided to
is
make
because we have limitations, and they give us more ability that we don't have without the tool. Right? God doesn't lack any ability. He doesn't need tools.
Well, according to you or according to God?
According to conceptual analysis, Johnny. Like that's
If
what a
God
tool
gets
does,
pleasure,
right? It gives you an increased ability. He
if
can't
God
do that.
gets
He already has all the abilities.
If God gets pleasure out of utilizing me or anyone else as a tool, well, then that's what He's going to do.
But He could get the pleasure
Right. So
equally
basically,
by
hold on.
not using the
Don't
tool.
tell me what God could have done.
Every time that somebody poses an objection to your view, you just say, "Well, that's just how God is. You better just learn to like it." That's every single fucking time that somebody gives you an objection. That's what you do. Every time.
Do about it? And don't
What
start
am I
telling me
going
what
to do
God
about
could.
it? I'll just tell you, you're a fucking idiot.
Okay,
You're a
have
shithead.
a cookie. Well, have a cookie if that's what you want.
Have a cookie? You're going to give me a cookie for calling you a shithead?
Yeah, I'm here to tell Johnny how much I just don't like his Calvinist views. Okay, have a nice day with that. Doesn't mean anything.
Well, you can have a nice day with your bullshit views, Johnny. Nobody wants to fucking hear about it.
Have a lovely day.
Have a nice day, sinner.
I still don't understand how God can use it as a tool when it serves no function. It has no utility.
You're drawing the
Tools have a
conclusion that it has no
utility.
function.
It has no function. It's not doing anything. It's not changing in the will. It's not changing what's going to happen. It's changing nothing. It's not doing anything. And yet somehow you're saying it's a tool and it has utility. It has no utility.
Yeah,
it does
well,
nothing.
if that's the means, well, we see in Scripture where it talks about those who pray and repent. By doing so, it says God will then heal their land, if that's what they're going to do. Now, He is
right,
using
but the repenting is the thing that's doing something, not the prayer.
Well, but that's a form. When you're repenting, you are praying to God in that moment. That's what you're doing. That's part of what prayer is as well.
I mean, I have a little bit of sympathy for Johnny here. I mean, he literally thinks he's nothing more than a drone. If he thinks that he believes in like that God had, like, he can't do anything that God hasn't foreseen. He literally thinks he's just a drone. He doesn't have any will. He's just acting out the things that God wants. That's a pretty sad existence, to think that you have no want of your own. you have no desires of your own. To think that you go through life understanding that everything that you think you want is just what God wants you to think you want. That's a pretty bad existence. I feel
I've
bad
always
for you.
wondered why they always say that like nihilists or whatever should just kill themselves or whatever. Like, what's the point in living? To me, the Christians are the ones that are, if I were a Christian and believed that heaven was like as good as they say it is, then I would kill myself to get there or put it in a way that I could get there as fast as humanly possible. I don't understand why on earth you would stay here. It's a hellscape.
Because we are told to do many different things. I have many different responsibilities. Number one as a husband. Number two as a father. We are
over the
also
son that you
obligated to
don't care
work.
about. Over the son you don't care about.
I'm still obligated to be a steward over my son and be the leader of my
until
family.
he goes
I
to
still
hell.
have,
But you're made to do
until
that.
he goes
well,
to
that's
hell.
fine, but I still have that responsibility.
To send him to hell?
Johnny,
Just
I
because
believe
someone goes to hell doesn't negate my responsibility as a father, James.
What
Just
good is it
clarify,
doing?
you're a Calvinist, right,
What
Johnny?
good is it doing?
To do.
You're a Calvinist, right, Johnny?
That's correct.
Oh, then no, he doesn't care. His son. He isn't like, he doesn't have to worry about his son going to hell or not. God has already committed his son to hell because he doesn't have any other choices.
Corsi, you don't need to explain Calvinism to us.
Listen, Johnny, I understand. I understand this thing you got to put on because of the severe commitments you've made theologically. I understand what you're saying and why you're doing it, but I don't think there's anybody here who has any reason to believe that internally you actually feel that way. As a father, I don't think it's possible for you to feel that way.
Well, as I said, just because my father, my brother, or sister, or whatever ends up in hell, or my friends, doesn't matter. I'm still supposed to do what
That's
I feel is an
not
obligation to
what
do.
I'm talking about.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm still supposed to be a father, raise my son the right way, and do the things that a father is supposed to do, regardless of where
What's
they
the
end up.
point,
This
though,
is my
if he ends up
job.
in hell?
What's that?
I said, what's the point if he ends up in hell?
Because I'm supposed to there's a job that I have to do now.
Yeah, but you
That's what
didn't
I'm
do it,
going
right?
to
If he
do.
ends up in hell, then you didn't do the job.
That's not correct. I don't determine where he goes, but as far as what I understand God to ordain to us or to dictate, I guess, in regards to an edict, this is what a man is supposed to do. He's supposed to, for example, even if a man's wife,
if his destiny is determined, what the fuck does it matter what you do?
even if a man's wife ends up in hell, Scripture teaches that the husband is still supposed to love their wives.
Why?
That's what the husband is supposed to do, because this
doesn't
is
matter.
what God has said to do. And as a Christian, we tend to at least try to do what God wants us to do. This is not hard.
Even though it
This is not difficult.
serves no utility and is useless, pointless,
matters
affects
to me if it
nothing.
serves utility. Jane.
It doesn't affect anything.
Jane.
God has
Jane.
predetermined everything. So you, quote, doing your job as good as you can makes no fucking difference at all. None.
Jane, I want to explain something to you. Wait. I want to explain something to you, Jane. It doesn't matter to me if you do not find that there is utility in it. It matters to me if God thinks there's utility in it.
God doesn't think there's utility in it.
How do you know that?
Because he told you. He told you that there's no utility in it. When he told
did?
you, yes, he did. When he said that
he said there's no reason, Johnny, for you to love your wife.
That's correct, because everything's predetermined.
Yeah, okay.
Everything is decided beforehand.
Yeah, he also
it makes
determined
no
for me to love
difference
my wife
what you
too,
do.
by the way.
None. No difference.
Yeah, he also determined me to love my wife and do things that he has commanded us to do. For example, one of which is to work. That's a command. So I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. I'll let God do what he's going to do.
It makes no difference.
That's fine with me. Well, maybe to Jane, it makes no difference. Just like I remember one time,
It doesn't make any difference to you. It makes no
Jane,
difference to you either.
Jane, I remember one time you said something about, you were talking about the crucifixion. And you said something like, well, there really was no sacrifice. I mean, he was only on a cross for a few hours, and he was only in the tomb for 3 days. Well, that's not really a sacrifice. Okay, well, here's what you don't understand, Jane. It matters what satisfied the Father as to what he sees as sufficient. It doesn't matter if Gene doesn't find that sufficient. It matters to what God finds to be sufficient. Do you understand
But
that?
isn't Jesus God?
Yes. Do you understand that,
So
Gene?
it mattered. So he sacrificed himself to himself.
Yeah, Gene, do you
to
understand
ease himself.
that it doesn't matter if you
Right.
don't find it
And
to be
you don't
sufficient?
understand my argument
Do you
at
get
all.
that?
You don't understand my argument.
Okay, well, maybe not. I don't understand every
Okay,
argument, so that
let
could
me
be
say something,
possibly
Johnny,
true.
real quick. Johnny, please, thank you.
Oh,
All right,
thank
voters.
God,
So
Concrete's
you've seen
here.
my candidate. You've seen my opponent. You've heard his argument as to why he
for
should be
fuck's sakes.
number one Christian. I now implore you to vote either Johnny Haas or Concrete Plus as number one Christian.
Johnny Haas.
Given our two platforms,
Concrete Plus.
I believe
Johnny
that
Haas.
I have earned the right to be the number one Christian.
I
Please vote now.
for a self-inflicted bullet to the head.
You know, self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head would be actually make a really great death metal name.
All right, guys. Like, I'm streaming this on YouTube. Stop with the like killing stuff, please.
Yeah, you weirdos.
Why are you still streaming this?
Are you still streaming? Are you seriously streaming?
Okay, that's fine. So, Johnny, you just need to revise your statement that you say to your loved ones. I care about you until you die. I don't give a fuck anymore after that.
Can Ortangelo
thanks
be
for the
best
advice.
Christian?
It's the entailment of your view. Where they end
Well,
up?
that seems
Who
to-
gives a
that
shit?
seems-
Who
that
gives a
seems to-
shit? And I'm gonna love you right up until that line where it's indeterminate where you're gonna go. I can't do anything about it. So since I can't do anything about it, I'm just gonna not give a shit.
Well,
Right?
I mean, in some sense, I mean, look at it this way. I've argued before that those in heaven, do I think that they will still love, whether they have a friend or a family member or whatever, in hell? Do I think they will still be loving them when they are in heaven? No, I don't. So if that's what you're saying, look, I'll love you here in this lifetime and on this earth, but once I get to heaven, I don't think I'll love you anymore.
Yeah, you're
If that's
dead to me.
sort of
You're
what you're talking.
fucking dead to me once this life is
fine.
over.
Yeah, that
You know,
doesn't seem
what's-
possible.
Well, actually, to many Christians, it does. Many Calvinists, at least.
I
So
wish
if
you
that's
would
what you're
relate that to your
talking
kids
about,
at some
then
point so they can
sure.
understand the
Or
entailments of
only
what you're fucking teaching them.
6% of Christians. I don't know why you would say most Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close, Johnny. Like, you have such a fringe view. It's like, it's insane. Like, you are an insane person. Like, we all recognize it. You seem not to, right? Hopefully someday you do realize that these views are like completely fucked that you hold.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. But for example, like Calvinists would already tell you, at least most that I'm familiar with, would already tell you that they don't think God loves everyone. So it doesn't stand to any sort of reason to think that, when Calvinists are in heaven, God is going to be pouring out his wrath and fury on those he despises.
Yeah, God could very well
He
hate
does
your
not love.
kids, Johnny.
I'm going to try to finish. That God
I'm
is
just
going to
cutting to the
pour out
chase.
his wrath. I'll tell you what, when you get done talking, then I'll talk.
Yeah, I'm just cutting to the chase, Johnny. Just cutting to the chase. God could very possibly hate the fuck out of your kids. So why are you wasting your time?
Do you want to hear my response?
Go ahead.
Okay. It does stand to reason that if God does not love these people in hell, and when we get to heaven, we'll be sanctified and justified, and we'll have the mind of Christ, I think we too, those in heaven, will see those in hell exactly the way God sees them. I do not think anyone in heaven will love anyone in hell. It would not make sense to me, at least, even in a logical sense, to say, you know what? God despises these people, but I love them. It seems now that people are at odds with God. And that would have to be everybody, because everybody in heaven is going to have some friends and family or loved ones, whatever, that are in hell. So if that's the case, it sounds like everyone in heaven is now disagreeing with God. Well, that's not going to happen.
Little Johnette, I loved you in life, but now that I'm dead, I realize God hates you, so I don't love you
That's
anymore.
right. That's correct.
Piece of fucking shit, Johnny.
But you don't
Yeah,
have to
you
worry
really
about
are.
this. You
No,
don't.
you really are. No. If you're saying
don't
today you
believe
love
any
your
of
kid,
it.
right? But if they died and went to hell today, you'd be fine with them being tortured for the rest of time.
Yeah,
That's
how do you
Are
just
you
turn your
serious?
emotions off?
And what's
That's
worse
correct.
is that he's being tortured forever based on nothing that he did himself. That's
Well,
what's
that's not
worse.
correct. But
That is
would I
How
have
correct.
is
a
it
problem?
Johnny just turns his
Well, not
emotions
to
off?
That is absolutely correct. What the fuck you mean it's not correct?
No, it's that
You
they haven't done
literally believe
anything
in
wrong.
determination.
No Christian
That your
believes that, by the
entire
way.
life. Stop. You actually believe that your entire life was predetermined before you were born when God created you. So that means that when God created your son, he determined whether he was going to hell or not right before he was born. So God already knows that your son is going to hell or not going to hell. And God already knows if you are going to heaven or not going to heaven. So
That's
God
correct.
created you and your son. And if you and your son both go to different places, he created you to eventually hate your son intentionally.
That's fine.
And you want to worship that shit?
Yes,
That's right.
that's right.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
This is what Romans
Seriously,
teaches.
no. You need to seriously go see a psychotherapist because
Well, I
holy
guess
fuck, that is like I thought the atheist worldview of I know I will no longer exist after I die, that my existence is gone. I thought that was depressing. Your worldview is insanely worse than mine, insanely more depressing than mine. To go through life knowing, loving, and caring about people, knowing that at the end of your life, you are going to hate and despise every single one of them? How can you live with yourself? Answer me that.
An atheist could believe in an afterlife.
I mean, this is what Romans 9 teaches, that, out of the same lump of clay, some were created for honorable use, some for dishonorable use. Some were prepared to be vessels of mercy. Some were prepared to be vessels of wrath. Scripture and
And
Revelation.
you think that is a God worthy of worship?
Yeah, we weren't unclear about what your position is, Johnny. You don't have to restate what your position is. It's a horrible position. It's a horrible, unethical position, and it makes no sense to say that you love your kid, but you don't care if your kid is tortured. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You're a horrible parent.
Christianity isn't for everyone. It's not
I
for
didn't
everybody.
ask you
Your
if
version of
Christianity
Christianity isn't
You
for
notice how you
anyone.
go back to these slogans, right, when you're uncomfortable every single time.
It's not uncomfortable. I'm acknowledging where you're at. You have a problem with it. Yeah, I get it. It's not for everyone. I'm agreeing. It's not for
Emotional
everyone.
self-lobotomization is not
No.
for everyone.
No. What I'm saying is the fact that you can accept it means that you're a piece of shit. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I mean, I expect you to think that way. So yes, will I be worshiping the God that is pouring his wrath on those that I knew in this life that say I was very friendly with, or they were one of my best friends or one of my relatives or something
That
like
don't
that?
deserve it. That don't deserve it. Add it. You can't not say that they don't deserve it.
Yeah, I can say that. You don't get to assume what I have to say and what I
On
don't
what
say.
justification in a deterministic
what Scripture
worldview where
teaches that
God
we've all-
literally punished the person before they existed?
Well,
is it justified in saying that they deserved it?
You can have your argument and oppose Christianity for whatever you think, but you don't get to project that onto me. You don't get to say to me, well, but Johnny, you have to acknowledge that they didn't deserve it. No, I don't have to acknowledge that.
I'm sorry if your worldview is being shoved in your face is so upsetting that you want to sit there and try to defend it. You can't defend this.
Well,
this is your
where I
worldview
wish
being
other
shoved in your face.
Christians-
If it's making you uncomfortable, not my
doesn't make me
fucking
uncomfortable.
problem.
You're the one that's uncomfortable. You're the one
Yeah, I
reacting
don't know.
to it, not me.
I don't know why you're attacking the robot. I mean, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm not uncomfortable with it at all. I'm the one who professes it. I'm the one who talks about this. I'm the one that does say things like, yes, prior to the beginning of the world, God has written all the names in the book of life who would be redeemed prior
And
to
this
them
is
even
why you
coming
need to
into
go to see a
existence.
mental doctor.
Okay. Well, I'm not troubled by my own position here.
there's every part of me that wants to get involved right now, but I'm not going to kick a man while he's down, so I'm just going to opt out on
Well,
this
I mean, you guys can think I'm down. You guys can think, look, we're just showing this to Johnny to get him to see how terrible his views are. I realize you think they're terrible. I get it. I understand. I expect people to see my views as terrible. This is not a revelation. This is not something new to me.
Yeah, it just indicates that you in part know that it's terrible.
I don't think it is.
But John,
then
if you
why
don't
is it
think
so?
this,
Why is
I
this?
don't think it's
Why is it
terrible at
so
all.
expected? Why is it so expected then that everybody else would?
Because you don't have the mind of a Christian.
John, if you don't think
Well,
this
but
way,
you
that
realize
What
that
it means
everybody
to
do
be the
it.
mind of a
You realize,
Christian, I
Johnny,
don't
you
want it.
realize that the
You don't have a mind.
majority of Christians would find your views reprehensible. I don't know why you keep claiming that it's just because we're not Christians and that's why we don't get it. The vast majority of Christians would find your views abhorrent.
I mean, that's a good point, Jane, but I also look at it as the numbers of professed Christians out there. I think even the statistics says there's 2-point-something billion Christians in the world. I don't think that's an accurate number. Now, I do think that there's probably 2-point-some billion people who profess to be Christians. Well, I don't disagree with that, but I don't think a lot of people that claim to be Christians are actually Christians. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who profess to be Christians that don't like my position.
This is honestly hilarious, Johnny. It's like, yeah, when Jesus was here, right? He just went around telling people, like, yeah, some of you are elect and some of you aren't, and you don't have any like real control
There's
over your
nothing
actions
you can do
aside
about
from what
it.
God decided for you. Yeah, that was Jesus' message. You're right.
Well, Jesus' message was also, I came to lay my life down for the sheep. Jesus' message was also, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. I came to create division amongst family. Jesus also said in his message,
that you go right to those.
Wait. Jesus also said in his message, if you love your family more than me, you're not worthy of me. So that Jesus had
You
many
don't find a
messages
problem
too.
with that? You don't find a
No,
problem with that?
no,
Why would he
I
tell
don't.
you to take care of your children and your wife like it's a job and it's the only thing you're supposed to do, but you're also supposed to hate them?
I don't think it means hate in the sense of some sort of vitriolic hate. I think what that scripture is teaching, not to have anyone before him. In other words,
It literally
whether it's about
uses the word hate.
yeah, I understand that, but it's talking about the degree that you should have towards Christ apart from anyone else. In other words, it should be in a category of its own.
If that's true, then why didn't he say, if you don't put me above your family? Like that would be a very easy thing to write down in whatever language they were writing, right? I'm sure he said other things, putting other things before other things. That's a very common phrase. Why wouldn't he use that instead of saying, hate your brother, hate your mother, hate your family? He used the word hate.
He did. But I think it also demonstrates the priority to have him and him alone and no other
You could have said it by
individual
saying,
as
put
a
me as
complete.
a priority, put me
But he just
before them, put me
well he
above
might
all else. He said
well
all
he
of those phrases. Why would
well
he
if
say
he
hate in this case if he didn't mean hate?
if he wanted people like you to understand that, then perhaps maybe he could have said it that way. But he wasn't necessarily speaking to people like you, Jane. I understand what he was talking about. I do not love and worship the creature. I do the creator. And this is the category of difference between who Jesus is versus who
Do you
everyone
hate
else
your
is.
wife and your son?
No,
Yeah, you
I
don't
don't
love
think
other people. Great.
I don't
Do
think
you
you're
hate
really
your wife and
understanding
your
what I'm
son?
talking about here.
Do
No,
you hate your wife and your son? Then you're not following
no.
the command that he gave you.
According to your understanding, but which is not my understanding of what that means.
According to your understanding,
I'm
are
not
you
obligated to
hating your
understand
wife
it the
and
way you
son?
do.
No. I'm
Jane,
saying according to your understanding, however you take it, are you hating your son and your wife? Like
in
the
the
Bible tells you
context,
to.
in the context of placing Jesus Christ above all
Why
others
can't you just
and
say it,
be
Johnny?
willing to, Jane, I'm trying to, and be willing to deny everything else for the sake of Christ in that particular meaning of the sense, then yes, I do. But
yes,
this
you
comes
what?
with a
Yes,
particular
you what?
meaning and
Yes, you
understanding,
what?
Jen.
Yes, you hate your
Hate them.
wife
You
and
know
son.
exactly what I'm talking.
No, can you
In
say
that
it though?
particular, I just said it.
No, you didn't. You said
Well, you were over
in that sense
talking
I
me, but I did
do.
say it.
No, you didn't. Can you please tell me, yes, Jane,
So
I
in
hate
that
my wife
particular
and son.
context of what it means, then yes,
You hate your wife and
absolutely.
son. You're not saying it though.
But you
You're just saying
understand it
yes.
differently than I
No,
do.
no, no.
But
You're not
again,
actually
Jane,
saying
I'm
the
not
words.
obligated to understand it the way
No,
you
no,
do.
no. You're not
I'm
actually
simply
saying the
telling
words.
you the way I
You're just
understand.
saying in that context, I do, yes, but you're not using the actual words. I want to hear you say, I, Johnny, hate my wife and son. And you don't want to say that for some reason. You don't want to say it?
Here's another sense we might use, right? If one of your loved ones ends up in hell, that means God hates them, right? So if you don't hate them the way God hates them, right, then you're out of accord with God's nature. So you're sinning.
I don't know why you can't just say it, Johnny. I hate my wife and son.
You know what I find ironic is Johnny doesn't seem to care to offend other people, but I made a joke about Mother Mary not consenting to God a long time ago, and he's grown so offended by that. To this day, he won't have a conversation with me.
Maybe a more honest commitment would be I don't know if I love my family because I don't know if God hates them yet.
Well, that was very productive.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Milk.
Did Johnny leave?
Johnny says the same thing on repeat because he's a big tough guy.
You don't have to like it, Mel.
What was up with the you're
Oh, I
determined?
don't like it.
No.
It's boring.
No, I'm just saying that's one of the things he says over and over and over. Well, you don't have to like it.
Yeah, I know. It's still my response. I don't like it either.
What'd you say, Albedo?
The God determining you to go to hell is like a criticism. But it seems like if you're just a determinist, you've already kind of accepted things like that.
What thing like that do atheist
Whatever.
determinists?
Yeah, if you're going to jail, I don't know, in 2024 for some crime you've committed, you're determined to do that. Can't not do that, right? Hell's way worse. I agree with that.
I mean, you don't have to like it.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, he
Albedo.
kind of celebrates it in a really gross way. I don't know that.
No,
I'm not.
That's not the stuff
He's
I'm
the
criticizing.
guy
I
that
agree,
says
but
he'll
that's
get
also-
marshmallows out when he says his loved ones are in hell, right? He's just being pushed on the dumb things he says. That's all.
I mean, I don't think anybody would come at him nearly as hard if he's like, "Yep, this is what I think is going to happen. it doesn't make me feel good. Like I don't, if I could pick a different way, I would have picked a different way, but this is the way it is. Like if he's begrudging about it, I don't think anybody would really care, but he's not that.
It's such a weird.
No, he's proud of it.
Position. I just don't get it.
I don't have a problem with it. By the way, I lost signal earlier, so I don't know how much you actually got to hear what I was responding to. But
Would you like to tell us now that you hate your wife and son?
well, there's going to be a context that I think.
That's fine. You can put in all the context I want. I just want the words. You can preamble it all you want, but I want the words. I hate my wife and son.
In reference to the way I see the comparison between my wife and son versus Jesus Christ, yes, because the reference there is demonstrating that I put Jesus Christ above everything, including my wife and son. And there would even be a case, for example, I mean, I'm trying to come up with a scenario. Let's say that
You still haven't said the words, by the way.
yes, I did.
Oh, he agreed to them.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You just said, my wife and son. You never said, I
Yes,
hate
in
my wife and
comparison.
son. You
Yes,
never said it. You just said yes.
Yes, what, Jane?
You need to fill in I want the actual words to come out of your mouth. I
Yes,
hate my wife and son.
Yes,
You are not saying those words.
I do hate my wife and son and my family and
Thank
friends and
you.
every single
Thank you.
person on the planet in comparison to the love I have for Jesus Christ. He is the one that is above all else. And he is such to a degree that that's what it means to hate everything else other than Christ. It's talking about the degree of how much a Christian, or at least for me anyway, of how much I put Jesus Christ to be above all other things. That's what is meant by that. It's not some sort of visceral loathing for these people, but it's sort of a scenario. For example, let's say I'm captured by ISIS, whatever, and they capture my entire family. And the demand is, look, renounce your Jesus, state before men he's not the Son of God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or else, I kill your family. Well, I'm not going to renounce Jesus Christ. Now, someone would say, well,
Oh, this sounds like one of those big tough guy scenarios that you don't like when people do this, Johnny. They talk all big and mean and puff out their chest like they're going to be the heroes. And you called that bullshit
I'm not trying
before.
to be a hero in anything.
Oh,
I'm not trying to be a hero.
You absolutely were decrying people doing this in the past. Oh, the burglar's going to come in and I'm going to shoot him with my Glock or whatever the fuck you were talking about. And you're doing the exact same thing here.
Many people think that they know
you don't
what they
know
would
what
do.
You would do. You do not know what you would do if ISIS had your family and you and were threatening them. That's correct. Thank you.
Well, but here's what I'd like to think I would do, based on who I am and me
now
knowing me
you want
better
to talk
than
big guy, tough, puff out chest, tough guy stuff.
Well, all right, Jane.
Now
look, if you don't
you
want
think
to,
it's
if you don't
okay?
want to
Jane,
hear,
you're doing
then
too much, Jane.
don't hear it. I'm not going to argue. If you don't want to
Well,
hear what I have to say, then
if you
that's
don't
fine.
like it when other people do it, why would you do it?
I'm just simply saying a lot of people keep saying things like, here's what they think they would do in certain situations. I'm simply saying it is most of the time, most of all the cases where you really actually don't know what you would do. But that's not simply to say you can't at least have an idea or at least think this is what you either would do or what you would like to do. But the point I'm trying to make, the point, you're missing the entire point, Jane. The point is, if I were to say, nope, I'm not going to do that.
The point is you're a big tough guy who loves Jesus and hates his family.
You're just,
I get it.
you're actually not letting the point be made.
Your point is you like to think things that you don't know are true. We get you.
Okay. All right. Well, I tried, so I'm not going to try to force it. If you don't want to hear what I have to say, then that's fine too.
And that you wouldn't denounce Jesus.
I'm not going to respond if I'm just going to be interrupted. I'm just not going to do it. You guys,
I think God would know that you're lying to save your family. Right?
Yeah, let's not just flip the table with a bunch of like interrupter, like ankle biters.
The point is, If someone were to say, nope, I'm not going to renounce my Jesus, even at the cost of their family being executed, some would say, well, look, he really didn't love his family at all. Actually, he hated them. That's sort of, I think, what the view would be in comparison to the loyalty and fidelity and love that they have for Jesus Christ. That's what it would seem like. And that is the point. Now that you understand that, Jane, I tend to doubt it, but I'm asking you the question.
Is this preacher hour?
So here's another question then for you, Johnny. So you think that if you were to say, I renounce Jesus, right, that you would go to hell for doing that, right? But you'd be saving your family, right? You don't think that's a sacrifice that you can make, or what?
I don't really look at it like that. I mean, we see in Scripture where it talks about, those who renounce Christ. I mean, it's like to say you're loyal to Christ up until you're just not loyal. Well, then are you really loyal at all? At what point are you loyal? To the point that you're not? Is that loyalty? Is that fidelity?
What about what Paul said at the beginning of Romans 9?
It's not what I
believe
asked.
in Jesus. I believe in Jesus Christ up until I don't. Well, then you really have a true belief in
Your
Jesus
level of
Christ?
loyalty change. Didn't Paul say he'd wish himself accursed for the sake of the Jews at the beginning of Romans 9?
Yeah, I don't think that meant he wished that he could trade places with those in hell. I think he was talking more about his position and his station as an apostle.
No, I don't think so.
I think so. But the question was asked to me, right? So in other words, if you're asking me that, hold on.
You're not answering the question.
If you're asking me the question, I get to tell you what I think, right?
No, yeah.
Isn't that how it works? Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've heard you just went on about loyalty. That wasn't the question, right? Let's just say it actually goes like this. Either you go to heaven and your son goes to hell, or you can choose to switch places.
I'm not switching places with anyone.
It sounds pretty damn selfish to me.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense though, because in order for you to love, you need free will. So he doesn't have love because he doesn't have free will.
Doesn't this? I mean, maybe Jane covered this because I didn't hear the whole thing. But doesn't this conflict with the command to love each other with all your heart or something?
Well, it would if Jane is understanding it to mean the way she thinks it means, yeah. But the way I explained it, it just simply talks about placing Jesus Christ above all other things, insofar as to the degree that it's going to seem like you do hate your family. That's what it's speaking of. But I don't think Jane is interested in sort of trying to understand that. I think she has her own narrative. She wants her own sound bites, and she wants me to say things that suit her biases and her narratives.
Actually,
so
right now
really, she's not really interested in
that's beside the point.
Well, whatever. But I don't think she's really seriously interested in what I think about it and trying to understand it from my point of view. I don't think she's interested in doing that.
Do you think you're giving good reasons for your beliefs, or just espouting what you believe?
I don't know if I could determine whether they're, I mean, for sure, let me take that back. Perhaps I could determine that they're good reasons, but the listeners aren't necessarily going to determine that.
So I have a question. Have you already done this? It sounds like you have never determined whether you actually have good reasons, because you just said, well, I don't know.
I think they are good reasons, but again, I don't necessarily think the audience has to see things the way I see. I don't think the audience has to say, oh, well, Johnny, since you see it as a good reason, therefore I must as well. No, you don't have to.
Well, yeah, but telling us what you believe isn't going to be impactful as telling us why you believe it, right? So you keep going on what you believe. And I'm just asking again. If
Yeah,
you
well,
were
look,
to tell us
here's
why you
what I
believe
do.
what you believe at the same time, it would have way less follow-up questions and be way more convincing.
Okay, well,
Instead of
that's
just
not up to me.
prophesizing.
I'm not the one asking the follow-up questions here. But here, let me explain something
I
to you
know I
about what I
did.
do and what I
That's why
don't
I'm
do.
trying to tell you how to answer better.
Well, well, thank you for trying to counsel me on how to answer better. But here's
You're
what I
welcome.
want to show you. Here's what I want to explain to you. Here's what I do and here's what I don't do. I don't mind answering the questions, but trying to argue and bicker and debate and convince and persuade, I'm not interested in that. Answering a question
So you are
about what I think and
prophesizing.
what I believe, then I will do that.
Okay. Cool. I have no more questions than if you're just going to tell us what you think.
So Jesus is saying, on the one hand,
is.
love each other. I don't know the exact words. It's when he said, love God with all your heart and love each other. So I don't know exactly how he worded it. So he's saying, love each other. And then he's saying, but loves me so much, it'll look like you hate everyone else. And those two commandments just don't even seem to go together.
Well, there's different commentary on that even as well. I mean, Haiti, when it comes to talk about loving one another, you know, who is Jesus speaking to? Is he speaking to non-believers? Speaking to believers? Well, love
Well,
one
let's say
another.
he's
Well, who
speaking
does that? Well, who
let's say
does
he's
that
speaking to
mean? Does that
believers.
mean have it? But does that mean to have a special love for your brother, or is that speaking of the non-sheep as well too?
Well, let's say
Now we also
believers. What
see
does that matter?
passages. Well, we do see passages where it does talk about loving others as you would love yourself. So I'm not necessarily saying that particular commentary is the exact exegesis of what he's doing here, but I'm just simply talking about when it comes to hating your family, it just seems to describe the difference between how much you place Jesus Christ above all other people, insofar as to the degree that it's going to seem like you hate them in comparison.
Yeah, I
Based on the
understand that.
level that you have placed Christ. Well, well, that's excellent because it seems like some people don't
No,
understand that.
Well,
if you
doesn't
consistently
solve the
apply that to
problem.
Esau and Jacob, though.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. Me understanding what you mean, what you understand that line to mean, doesn't solve the problem that it seems to contradict another thing Jesus said, which is love each other. He's saying love each other, but also love me so much that it looks like you hate each other. And I don't understand why loving somebody so much means you hate everyone else in comparison. You could just be indifferent to them, or you could just love them a little bit. Why'd you have to hate them?
I think it just simply describes the level that one is putting Christ above all other things, to the degree that there is such a level that it's going to seem in comparison that you do hate others.
Yeah.
But we see in Scripture where it talks about turn the other cheek, forgive others, things like that. Yeah, we're still supposed to do that, but in that particular passage, it's just demonstrating the platform that Jesus is placed on that no one else shares, and it's so higher. It's so much higher than above all other things. In comparison, it's going to be like you do hate everything else. That's simply what it's talking about. I mean, this is really not, to me, this is something Christians don't struggle with. I mean, this is not a problem. It's not an issue. I think other Christians generally understand what exactly that I just explained.
Well, Johnny, if that's true, how do you interpret Esau and Jacob then?
I look at that as election, predestination.
If it's just love less, though, you could still love Esau and damn him to hell.
Look, I mean, I'm not going to repeat what I just stated that I thought I was pretty clear about, but now you're talking about something I think is a little different. I think you're talking about election here, predestination, those that have been preordained to be redeemed, and the rest are slated for eternal destruction. This is what God has planned before the beginning. For example, if a person ends up in hell, it's the case that they were always going to hell. Even when they were 2 months old, in their mother's arms, they were always going to hell. And if it's the case that you end up in heaven, it's the case that you always were going to heaven. This is election. This is predestination. But you know something? I see the way people react to the Calvinists' theology, and it's very, people really bristle at it, which I don't have a problem with them bristling at it. But this goes to where when I talk to other Christians, I often ask them, I'm like, look, why are you trying to convince atheists that the God of the Bible is real?
Why are you acting like you know God's plan?
Paul did this all day long. He tried to persuade the people
They're commanded to.
Well, no, they're not commanded to convince people that God's real. It's not a command.
He persuaded with them all day long.
To give them the reasons for the hope in their heart.
Yeah, he'd go to the Acropolis and argue with people all day.
That's not trying to get people to convert from non-belief to belief. You're talking about 1 Peter 3:15, right?
No, I'm talking about Acts 17.
What does Acts 17 say? I don't know it off the top of my head.
Well, that's the Mars Hill chapter, but there's also places in Acts where Luke chronicles Paul just being in the Acropolis and persuading with people all day long.
It's not for the existence of God.
I didn't say that.
That's exactly that's the point. That's what we're talking about. He
The
made a
existence
claim
of God
you
wasn't
don't
a
go
live
around
issue
arguing for
because they were
he
pagans.
said you don't go around arguing for the existence of God. Then you said Paul did it all the time.
Oh, okay. The existence of God. I thought you just meant arguing. All right, my bad.
No. Concrete's right in this particular case, which I'm happy to say. But yes, Concrete, you were right. You were following.
Well, if it were an issue back then, I think you would have argued for it. I mean, it wasn't an issue for ancient Corinth. They were pagan.
No,
they were polytheists.
The disciples of Christ weren't to go out and argue for trying to prove that God is real. That's not what they were doing. That's not what the command is to do. Because if it were, then that would actually, I think that would be a problem with Romans 1:20. Well, what do you mean we need to go out and prove that God is real? We see in Romans 1:20, it's already been done. So that would be a huge problem.
Well, yeah,
but
my point was plain as day. But I mean, what about Marcel though?
My point
to an unknown God, and he filled in the blank for them.
I really don't understand what you're talking about, to be honest with you. But to my point, when I hear other Christians trying to get atheists to the point where they're just concluding that God is real, talking about the God of the Bible, I'm like, why would you do that? Don't you understand that the last thing an atheist would want would be to worship my God, and you're trying to convince them that the God who drowns women and children with a flood is real? You think that's going to help them? You think that? No, I think that would actually ruin an atheist's day. I think they would be depressed if they had to think, you know what? When I die,
why would you assume that all atheists are the same?
Yeah, it just depends on who you're talking to.
Wait, so you're saying it does not depress you that this God exists that did drown babies and children?
What do you think?
It makes him happy, actually. It actually makes him happy.
What do you think my answer to that would be? Just take a guess. What do you think my answer to that would be?
It makes you smile.
If you've been around me for just a modicum of time, what do you think my answer to that would be?
Sorry, it's the first time hearing you talk. I would imagine.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. The answer is no. I would not be depressed.
Can I ask why?
I mean, it's God's sovereign. He knows what he's doing. He believes that.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Do you think that this all-powerful God who wanted to reset humanity could have just done that without including drowning babies and innocent children?
No.
Oh, he had to create a flood in order to achieve that goal. He he couldn't just zap everything out of existence.
No.
Why do you make that claim?
Because that was not in his plan to do.
No, I'm not saying if it was in his plan. I'm asking, could he have done it another way?
No, because then that would have been a different plan, and there is no other different plan. I don't believe in other possible worlds, other possible plans. God could have done X, Y, and Z. No, that was never in his plan to do. There's no such thing as some other way.
hold on real quick. I'm just asking you to engage in a thought experiment of like the attribute.
Sovereignty to God in the covenant.
Yeah, but he holds this is the only possible world.
So, is he not omnipotent in your view?
Well, you're gonna have to define that.
Yeah, he is.
Well, don't you think that that would entail that he could do things differently than he did? That's all I'm asking. Hypothetical. Could.
No,
Interesting.
because see, you know, that question you asked me. I mean, I've only been asked that question maybe 1,000 times or more over the last decade or so. I wrote an article about it in another person's blog. The difference between power and will. So it sounds to me like you don't really understand the difference. If you'd like for me to explain it to you, I will. But it doesn't sound like you understand what the difference.
I want to know the difference. What's the difference?
I think I understand
Sure.
how you view them differently, but I don't think you understand how I view them differently.
Well, let me ask you this then. Why aren't you out assailing old ladies walking down the street? Why aren't you doing that?
Because I don't have the desire to do that.
Do you have the power?
Certainly, but I know that
Oh.
would be here's the difference. I know that that would be wrong and it would cause
Okay.
harm. So God, you're admitting right now that God has the power in your analogy, I guess, because you're trying to compare. God does have the power to do things in a different way, but he desired to do it that way. I don't desire to do that to cause harm. So clearly he
Yeah, you don't
desired
have
to
a
cause
will to.
harm to children and babies.
That's
Got
right.
it.
But you were talking about the omnipotence of God. You're talking about the power of God. You said, well, wait a minute. Isn't God omnipotent? Therefore,
Yeah, I
he
was just
could have
using your
done something.
analogy and showing you that it failed.
Well, I'm trying to
It-
show you something. I'm
Mhm.
trying to show you something if you're going to listen. You were talking
Okay.
about God's omnipotence, and you seem to suggest because he has power, well, why couldn't he have done something else? And I just asked you, you have the power right now to assail ladies walking down the street. But the
I
reason
already
why you're
answered
not
it.
assailing them, the reason why you're not assailing them is because you don't have a will to do it. So
Right.
just
So
because God
you're
has a power to do something doesn't mean he could have done something else.
cool.
No, if he did not have a will to do something else, he was
Got it.
not going to do it, even
So
though he has power.
what you're saying is you just admitted two things here. You admitted that God does have the ability to do something like I have the ability to do something to harm an old lady down the street, but I don't do it because I don't have the will to do that. So God does have the power and ability to have reset humanity without a flood, but his will and desire was to do it that way, which included killing babies. Understood. Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
that's correct. There's a difference between
Yeah,
power
that's
and
just
will.
disgusting.
God, why do you worship a God like this?
Well, that analogy kind of
love a God
backfires
like
on you, Johnny, a little bit.
I
'Cause
love it.
assaulting and assailing an old lady would be akin to what they think you're doing when you're saying God must kill the kids.
Wait, but what happens when God drowned the babies? What happened to the babies?
Heaven.
No, they did not go to heaven.
That's horrible. That's horrible. They went to heaven. Oh no.
No, they didn't go to heaven because
Of
they were
course
evil.
he knows where they went. Of course
God
he tells us
removed
where they
the
went.
evil. God removed the evil from the earth. The evil and the non-believers would have gone to hell. So the babies would have still gone to hell.
Oh, of course he says they went to hell. Okay, all right.
There were no babies.
Johnny
We
doesn't
believe
have
you,
any.
Corsi.
Johnny
We
doesn't
believe
have
you,
any.
Corsi.
Johnny doesn't have any problem with babies going to hell.
Oh, I
Right,
know.
so
That's like boggles my fucking mind.
basically those babies and those innocent women and children or whoever was innocent of this, they weren't adults committing these sins. They didn't know any better, right? They were drowned, which is a horrible death. And then after dying the physical life in that manner, they woke up to being burned forever. Some kind of a loving God you're preaching here about there, buddy.
Well, see, the thing is, he doesn't proclaim that it is an all-loving God. This is his rendition of what it is.
Yeah, he literally claims that God has hate and God can hate and God hates
my bad.
hates the
I didn't
people
know.
who go to hell. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
I mean,
his
well,
belief.
Well, the
Okay,
Romans,
looking at
you know
it-
what?
if you're proud of
Interpretation,
that,
Romans 9, John 6, and Ephesians 1.
if you're proud of that,
That's
man, like go on, do you? But that's like might is right. That's like worshiping a dictator. If you don't see that, like I don't know
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
Because that's what do you mean? What's wrong? Do you think a dictatorship, like maybe like North Korea, is a good thing for a person's life?
What if it was an awesome dictatorship ran by Willy Wonka and it was a chocolate factory full of all the gifts and dreams that you wanted? What's wrong with that?
Dude, don't respond to Concrete. He's
No,
literally just cheerleading.
Don't let him. Don't make him run
He's
away.
literally
Don't
just
let him,
cheerleading.
Don't teach him to run. He's here. He can handle himself. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I can answer
What's
that
wrong
pretty
with
easily. That's not a.
You're talking about the beginning of Lion King?
What you're presenting is not a dictatorship if you're giving everyone all of their hopes and dreams. So I wouldn't constitute
It's
that.
definitionally a dictatorship because you have to listen to what he says.
Oh, wait, now you're adding caveats.
Well, we talked about a dictatorship, and you try to like eliminate it definitionally as a dictatorship because what he's listening to people. When was that a necessary component of dictatorship, such that you never listen to the people? Exactly. Thank you.
Someone else is talking. I don't know what's going on, but there's some kind of recording being played.
Oh, I don't know. I can't hear it. Can you address what I said though?
Yeah, I just being really distracted. Maybe.
Do you have the Tom Rabbit video up at the same time?
Hold on. Let me see. There we go. My bad.
Okay.
What was your question? Sorry, I got distracted with that audio.
Look, you try to make it some necessary component that a dictator cannot listen to his people. And I'm just wondering why that's the case. Well, if I say Willy Wonka and he gives everyone their dream, you said, well, that's not a dictatorship because he gave everyone their dreams. How is that not a dictatorship? Sorry?
It's where one person has absolute power without like constitutional limitations. So I would say.
Yeah, we understand dictatorships. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how is this not a dictatorship?
In the Willy Wonka example, I would say, yeah, that probably is a dictatorship under the way that you're using it. Although to that, I guess I could say that there would be a outcome that's like not causing the level of harm that like not allowing people to have free will and choice. But it seems like you're presenting a case where it seems like you're presenting a case.
Johnny's the one who says they don't have free will.
Oh my God! Of course he wants to help you so bad because he sees you drowning. Of course he wants to help you.
No,
he doesn't believe
the problem is that you don't know what the fucking
conversation
conversation is,
right?
Of
course he doesn't think you have the intelligence enough to defend yourself.
I can answer this. So in your analogy, the reason why I was just taking a moment to like think about it is because I just don't think it's really analogous to what we were talking about with like the Christian God that will punish you eternally, right? If you're not one of the selected few. I guess we're talking to like Calvinists. Sorry, I didn't really know who that person was, but to that, I would say that's where your analogy doesn't really comport, because unless you say that Willy Wonka demands of you to like eat his chocolate or he'll punish you for eternity, then I would say like, yeah, that's a more fair analogy. Could you hear me? Because I feel like I'm in a bad signal zone.
No, you're fine. Concrete didn't understand what the hell the actual conversation was about because we were talking about Johnny's view in Calvinism.
Right.
So he started bringing up like basic Christianity where you can choose to go to heaven or not. Which that wouldn't be a dictatorship. But the way that Johnny's been presenting it, yes, it's absolutely a dictatorship because, like you said, it's not a matter of being given paradise to everybody. In the way Johnny's describing it, it's he gives paradise to the people he specifically wants to, and then tells the rest of them you have to work all your life for nothing and go to hell because at the end of your life you're just going to be sent there regardless.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was commenting on. So the whole Willy Wonka analogy, I'm kind of just like not really into that right now.
Well, I mean, you look at hell. I mean, we see in Scripture where it's sort of, I guess, metaphorically related to Gehenna, which is sort of like a trash heap. You know, you could perhaps look at it: is God throwing some people, or at least the majority, in my case, is God throwing people in the trash? Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
So, okay. Imagine if you create a Sims game, right? And you're the programmer and you put all the rules into the game. You know, you create all the characters, you create the world, and you create the rules by which they can follow. And part of it is that you select certain characters of the game to be able to go into like this next level, like better place, and you select other characters in the game that are going to go to this like torture chamber and to be thrown out like trash. Do you see that to be kind of like the onus on the shoulders of the programmer that's like developing a game where the characters have no choice and it's just like complete injustice going on here? Like if they do feel pain, by the way, I should have mentioned that earlier. If the characters can feel pain and suffering. Go ahead.
Well, I don't see it as an injustice. Back to what I was talking to Haiti earlier, is that fair? Well, no, I don't guess you could say it's fair because God is certainly not treating everyone equally, right? Because we do see in Scripture that all are sinners. Well, if you're going to talk about fair, then all people would deserve to go to hell, right? Well, but not all people do go to hell. Well, why is that? It's because God is not treating the redeemed equally with those that He is going to punish. Because, for example, those who have received mercy, it's not like they deserve to receive it. It's not like they